the perfect home on the planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51, Ladies' Lounge. Midway through the dance, a prank was staged. To commemorate the shared efforts of the East and West dormitories in weathering the torrential downpour, a self-circulating, transparent greenhouse was deployed. The watering was sporadic, with varying intensity and coverage. Everyone was asked to enter once, and whether or not they were doused, and how wet they got, was a matter of luck. Although Feiyu found the show rather dull, a commemoration more a joke than a commemoration, she always adhered to the rules of a modest lady in social situations. She followed the crowd, never easily declined group activities, and never tried to stand out from the crowd. This was something her father had taught her. He'd originally wanted her to be more lively and get along with her peers, but fearing she wouldn't agree, he gave her a wise excuse. Zaya Oxeo, we don't have many relatives, so we don't have anyone to help us when we go out. You should take care of yourself. If there are any group activities outside, don't give people a cold shoulder. Just blend in with the crowd. That's the best way to protect yourself. Having just entered adolescence, Feiyu didn't yet have a coherent outlook on life. She and her father depended on each other for survival, and she didn't even want to let him experience the rebelliousness of adolescence. She obediently followed his lead. Later, when she developed her own ideas, she'd become accustomed to this behavior. And, after careful consideration, her father's advice made perfect sense. So, she kept practicing it. As a result, many in Class A considered her aloof, but no one called her a strange beauty. Everyone formed groups, dancing a chain dance, and one by one, entered the greenhouse. Feiyu, Xin Yuhong, and Karen Mok teamed up, hands on the shoulders of those in front of them, swaying to the rhythm with 3 steps. They swayed to the outside of the greenhouse and went in one by one. Feiyu was quite open-minded, thinking that getting wet was the worst that could happen. She was only lightly drenched in the face, leaving a layer of dampness on her face, though her mask did much of the damage. Xin Yuhong was not so lucky and was sprayed with water. Karen Mok was also hit, but her large raincoat was stunning. As soon as she left the greenhouse, a classmate came to borrow it. Xin Yuhong's flower crown was soaked with water and she was looking for a place to remove it and clean it. Feiyu also wanted to wipe her mask, so Karen Mok generously lent her raincoat to her friends and accompanied them. The organizers of the ball had set up a row of temporary lounges in the event center for everyone to adjust their outfits or find some quiet time. The 3 of them chose one and went in. The long dragon dance continued. Most of the time, the greenhouse was peaceful, and the lucky ones could enter and exit dry. Occasionally, a mist of water would be sprayed, but that wasn't a big deal. If you were unlucky, you'd get a small drip of water, which you could just endure. A little more unlucky would be a sudden dousing, a moderate amount of water, a flood, but you could still brush your face, shake off your sleeves, and get by. The worst kind of misfortune was when the greenhouse was being cleaned. The entire room was under a powerful shower, with no place to hide, soaking you from head to toe. With a loud bang, the unlucky person in the greenhouse was drenched head and neck. And by the time he ran out of the greenhouse in a panic, he was completely soaked. His plush mask was tangled and stuck to his face, dripping with water. Everyone laughed until their stomachs hurt, and the unlucky person ran back to the dormitory with a bitter face to change. Many groups rushed to enter the greenhouse, because after a rinse, there would always be a period of time before the big rinse, and the safety factor was much higher at this time. The boys in Class 3 also quickly formed teams to enter the greenhouse. Overall, they were in good condition. The boys didn't pay much attention to details. They just touched their faces a few times and continued to laugh. Shuang Tannen smiled for a while and left the venue. As soon as he walked out of the passage, he heard a burst of laughter in the venue. He shook his head, thinking that the lucky period must have passed. Someone got soaked and made a fool of themselves. Tannen, soon, the sound of chasing footsteps came from behind. Shuang Tannen turned around, and after seeing clearly, he laughed in surprise. Qianjin, how did you get soaked? Qianjin was holding the dripping mask in his hand, his hair was soaked, and there was a dark patch on the shoulder of his dress. Yet, what a coincidence. A sudden shower of water. Luckily, the water level was only moderate, which is a blessing in disguise. There's bound to be one unlucky guy who needs a big shower later, but I don't know who it will be. Everyone's legs are shaking right now. Yu Qianchen was laughing to himself. He was having a good time, not caring about the slight dampness on his body. He chatted enthusiastically with Shuang Tannen. I saw you guys, Gui-san, go in. Everyone got out safe and sound. You're so lucky. Hey, I'm going to find a towel or something. What are you doing? I'm going to the office to check the robot's operation log. The two of them followed their way and walked forward together. Turning the corner of the corridor, they found the temporary rest area. Yu Qianchen went in and quickly came out. All the towels in there have been used. A lot of people got wet. Shuang Tannen laughed. Yu Qianchen checked several rooms in a row and found the same situation. If this keeps up, my mask will soon be soaked, he said. Qianchen, you made a mistake. You should have chosen a moisture-absorbing mask, and you shouldn't have been the last in line to enter the greenhouse, Shuang Tannen quipped. Seeing Yu Qianchen struggling to find a towel, he kindly offered, forget it. Come to my office. Next door is the supplies warehouse. I'll find you a towel. Shuang Tannen's office had two side doors. One led to the robot warehouse serving the students' activity center, where Shuang Tannen was responsible for maintenance. The other led to the consumables warehouse, where supplies like towels, blankets, and mats needed for body training were generally managed by Shuang Tannen. The robots would collect supplies from the warehouse and deliver them to designated locations based on their intelligent system. He led Yu Qianchen into the supplies warehouse, quickly found a towel, and tossed it to him. Angie, Feiyu, if you want to go out and play, don't wait for me. My flower crown will take a while to dry. Alice, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have chosen this material. And Angie was the smartest one, wearing a raincoat. A girl's voice could be heard faintly, half complaining and half amused. Shuang Tannen and Yu Qianchen were startled and subconsciously turned to the source of the voice. Shuang Tannen immediately understood that today was almost a big social for the East and West districts. Almost all the students in the entire college were there. The Students' Activity Center had requisitioned many empty rooms for temporary lounges. The other half of the consumables warehouse was empty, blocked by partitions, and was also converted into use. He gestured to Yu Qianchen, and the two were about to leave. There are too many people outside. I'll sit here for a while, another voice sounded. The voice was quite soft, but it was audible that the speaker had a slight impatience in his tone. He must have been annoyed by the noise in the venue. There are so many people here today. When I was dancing earlier, I almost bumped into someone when I turned around, another girl echoed, and she suddenly seemed to remember something and said, Hey, Feiyu, do you know Yu Qianchen from our class? He was actually the trial step king today. I saw him ask you to dance. But I only recognized him when I saw you were invited. The girl smiled. Yu Qianchen wiped his hair with a towel, paused, and turned to look at the partition again. Shuang Tannen didn't want to rush him, so he also paused. Chapter 52, Execution of the Rich and the Poor. I have a simulation project this semester, and he is responsible for the robot's appearance design, Feiyu said casually. Xianqi was lively by nature, and with nothing to do at the moment, she chattered a few more words. Yu Qianchen is the assistant teacher of our class. He is very good academically, and his designs have won many awards. She sighed as she spoke. We have to tutor interns this semester, and many younger students chose him, but no one chose me. The teaching system forced the younger students on me. It's really frustrating to compare yourself with others. Xin Yuhong laughed at the sight and said, Angel, Yu Qianchen in your class seems to be quite outstanding. There is a younger student in the second grade of our Department D. It is said that after working with Yu Qianchen on a project, she admired him very much. Yuhong, you are too tactful. I have seen that girl several times. She often comes to our Department C building to look for Yu Qianchen. Moreover, it is said that in order to get close to Yu Qianchen, she moved from the West Dormitory to the East Dormitory, and lives in the same building with him. There is an open speculation in our class now, when will Yu Qianchen be moved by that girl? Angel, your class is too funny. Shuang Tannen hesitated whether to clear his throat, reminding Yu Qianchen to leave, and by the way, reminding the girls next door not to gossip. He tilted his head to look at Yu Qianchen, whose face was slightly red, obviously embarrassed. Shuang Tannen couldn't help but laugh in his heart. He didn't expect Yu Qianchen to cause such a scandal. Our classmates are divided into two factions. One faction bets that the junior sister will be able to win over Yu Qianjin soon, and the other faction thinks that Yu Qianjin will still ignore the junior sister. Oh? Why? Xin Yuhang asked. The junior sister from our department is not ugly, and her family background is good. Why is Yu Qianjin so arrogant? Not ugly doesn't mean very good looking, Xianqi giggled, and then changed the subject. Actually, junior sister Dinger is okay, and she knows how to dress up. She is also lively and cute. When she comes to our studio on this floor, she calls us seniors every time she sees us. Why is that? Xin Yuhang blinked in confusion. When Yu Qianjin and your classmates from the East Dormitory District C department came to visit, they spoke and behaved quite warmly and kindly. They seemed like nice people. How could they be so cold to our junior sister Dinger? This has nothing to do with good guys or bad guys, it has to do with telepathy. Xianqi smiled. I also think that the junior sister from your department is wasting her energy. Yu Qianjin and her are just not compatible at all. Why not? Yu Qianjin, generally speaking, he is not a very active person. Karen Mok tilted her head and thought for a while. She might feel that she could not describe him in just one sentence. Besides, she was very grateful to him and his classmates for coming to see her frequently during this period. She waved her hand as if to wipe out her simple description. He is a very good person, but he is not the kind of person who is particularly cheerful and good at group activities. How should I put it? He is a bit hardworking and excellent in his studies, and is very popular with his tutors, but he is not very interested in other aspects. Do you understand what I mean? Anyway, I feel that junior sister Dinger is a good match for him. It seems that they cannot agree on any aspect and are not a match. Isn't there a saying that personalities complement each other? Xin Yuhang listened with interest while adjusting the tassels on the crown. Yes, indeed, Xianqi muttered, but the situation of junior sister Dinger and Yu Qianjin doesn't seem to complement each other. When junior sister came to see him, Yu Qianjin didn't receive her much. He looked like he wanted to hide. This time he tried to pass the test and didn't invite junior sister Dinger as his dance partner. Not many of us would be surprised. He may not even invite junior sister Dinger throughout the whole dance. Just wait and see. Feiyu and the two girls have been helping each other recently. They evacuated together on rainy nights, and went back to the West Dormitory together to get clothes. They had soaked in the water in the same hall downstairs from them. Recently, they lived next door to each other in the East Dormitory, even closer than when they were neighbors across the river. On weekdays, they discussed their soaked shoes and boots, the silt accumulated in the yard, talked and chatted much more often than before, and became more easygoing with each other. At this moment, she listened to her neighbors talking about other people's interesting stories, just as a moment of relaxation. And there's more. Karen Mok became more and more excited as she spoke. Yu Qianjin is said to be from an ordinary family. I'm not sure about the details, but it's true that he takes jobs outside. Think about it, he's so busy, and that schoolgirl comes to him all the time, talking about all sorts of things without getting to the point. Isn't this self-defeating? We still need to get to the point, Xin Yuhang asked in surprise. Karen Mok was stunned for a moment, laughed a few times, and laughed herself to death. Finally, she saw Feiyu sitting aside and hadn't expressed her opinion, so she couldn't help asking, Feiyu, do you think it's difficult to reconcile people with such different family backgrounds and personalities? Feiyu didn't want to comment on others, but in response to Karen Mok's question, she answered seriously, family background and personality are indeed very important. Yu Qianjin had been pretending to wipe his mask, appearing to be busy with something. At this moment, his expression froze slightly, and he continued to stand where he was, lowering his eyes and deliberately not looking at Shuang Tenin beside him. Do they have to be of equal social status and similar personalities? It seems there are plenty of examples of people who, regardless of those things, have fought together from scratch to build a successful future, and have found success together. Across the wall, Xin Yuhang wondered. Speaking of working together, many people can share hardships, but not wealth. Karen Mok curled her lips and shook her head disapprovingly. Girls always chat like this, seamlessly transitioning from one topic to another. When you're poor, your execution is poor, but when you're rich, you're more likely to change your mind, Feiyu added. Shuang Tenin frowned slightly. The girls across the wall were chatting privately, and it seemed they shouldn't be standing there listening. But if he spoke now, it would be awkward for both of them, and Yu Qianjin refused to move. Meanwhile, Xin Yuhang and Karen Mok looked at Feiyu in unison. And Karen Mok praised her on the spot. Feiyu, so insightful, no mistakes in one song, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one forum. That's not what I said, Feiyu shook her head. I worked on a shopping accompaniment program for women with autism, and someone said that, she thought of the interviewees, most of whom were middle-aged women from well-off families. They were suffering from a lack of emotional support in their families, and she sighed. This is still a relatively good result after working together. Even if the relationship is not happy after becoming rich and prosperous, and they are like strangers, their material life is better than before. There is also a situation where wealth and prosperity really cannot be shared. What is that situation? Feiyu glanced at the two girls who leaned forward curiously and explained, some people are very frugal when they're poor, and that's a virtue. Even after their family situation improves, they remain frugal and reluctant to add to the household expenses. Moreover, they believe that their family members should be the same. They don't care about clothing taste, and if their wives buy a few more nice clothes for occasions, they will despise her for being a spendthrift. They never take the initiative to take their wives out for travel. If their wives ask, they will let them go on a virtual tour on Star Network, saying that this way they can avoid crowding with people and still be immersed in the local environment. It also allows them to understand the local culture, allusions, scenery and specialties in more detail, and it is more efficient and economical than going on a quick tour in person. Karen Mock's eyes widened. Is there such a person? So stingy? Why not? Feiyu thought of the middle-aged woman who always wore simple clothes and had a gloomy face, and sighed. Take a good man and look at him alone. He is hardworking, willing to endure hardships, has a down-to-earth character, and is not unfaithful. No matter what, his wife will never divorce him. But no matter what, his wife will always treat him as her own wife. Isn't it particularly depressing? Chapter 53 The True Meaning of Life. Xing Yuhong, a gentle woman by nature, frowned, her face thick with sympathy. It's unfortunate to meet someone like this. I can't fault him, and he's not guilty of anything serious, but living with him every day is unbearable. Feiyu thought of the woman's request for the shopping companion robot during the interview. It should be able to say, dear, okay, dear, she sighed softly, twitching her lips in displeasure. This kind of person has a positive image. When he was poor, he'd save half of his nutritional supplements for his wife. But now that he's rich, he never takes his wife out for fine food. If you divorce him on this ground, it's so shallow that others will only accuse him of lavishness. He's on the moral high ground. Is he used to being poor? How can he still live so frugally now that things are better? Zhangqi couldn't accept it. Before Qi Changgong invited Feiyu to dance, he had already seen her from a distance several times. She was sitting with her neighbor, dressed simply and elegantly, exuding a gentle and graceful beauty. The other two girls were also wearing high-quality clothes. At this moment, listening to the three of them chat softly through the wall, he could imagine the graceful figures of these wealthy girls. That image must have been admirable. At least, even before this, when he was in the meeting hall, he couldn't help but glance through the subtle gaps between the crowds, looking, and looking. Standing at the foot of the wall, he was filled with a secret anticipation. Even when eavesdropping, he still imagined such a beautiful image. And now, the words "I'm used to being poor" were spoken with a hint of mockery in their crisp voice. It was said so casually, but it suddenly pierced his heart. He clutched his mask tightly. From the other side of the wall, the elegant, calm voice of the girl continued calmly, "It has nothing to do with wealth. It's just that he's able to endure hardship, doesn't care about the quality of life, and consequently demands that others suffer as well. He doesn't care about the quality of life, and that's just his stingy nature." Feiyu spoke, feeling aggrieved for the woman. They'd shared half a lifetime of hardship, yet she'd been unhappy all her life, never feeling cared for, yet she couldn't even complain with a clear conscience. Others saw her as happy enough, yet only she knew her own fate. Qi Changgong lowered his eyes and stood still. When her voice was low, if you listened closely, you could hear a hint of tenderness. Combined with her calm expression, this subtle contrast blended into a strange charm. Not long ago, on the dance floor, he'd been so nervous he'd almost misstepped, but now, it gave him a different feeling. She looked down on someone willing to endure hardship, believing that not caring about the quality of life was stingy. He glanced at the hem of his dress. The hem of the dress was stiff, even hard, and the fabric had a slight sheen. Amidst the strange outfits that filled the room, it was old-fashioned and orthodox. He had worn it at the welcome dance when he was a freshman. Xiong Tanin shook his head secretly. Girls would talk endlessly once they started chatting. These girls were well educated. He had run into them a few times when he went to see Qi Wei and the others. They didn't seem like gossipers, but he didn't expect them to be so talkative even behind people's backs. He also didn't expect that someone with a cold personality like Miss Yan could sit and chat with others. He reached out and tapped Yu Qianzhen's shoulder, then tilted his head to gesture towards the door. Yu Qianzhen nodded slightly, half turned around, and before he started, he heard laughter from the other side of the wall. That is to say, we can work hard together, but before working hard, we must first see clearly the character of this person. He cannot be fickle and stingy, otherwise it will be a waste of time. Karen Mok suddenly asked mischievously, Yu Hong, Fixin, if that junior sister finally moved Yu Qianzhen as another group of classmates in Class C guest, what kind of person do you think she will be after she succeeds in her struggle? Let's predict the happiness value for that junior sister. Zin Yu Hong laughed. I've only met her a few times, how can I say? Judging from her face, he's okay. I don't know him very well. Fixin shook her head, and she was moved by the women whose husbands became successful and developed autism. Everyone is honest, dutiful and willing to endure hardships at the beginning of their struggle. The various potential defects are just suppressed by the outside world, and they have no chance to show. That's why wealth and status reveal a person's true character. We have to wait until later to know. That junior sister is trying so hard to pursue her now. Alice, Karen Mok clicked her tongue. Not being able to see your future happiness at first is really, well, this is probably what the books say about the unpredictable world and the human heart. Zin Yu Hong lamented softly. Happiness lies within one's own heart. Why force connections with others? Feiyu remarked dismissively. If one's heart is free and unreliant on the care of others, there's no such thing as disappointment or loneliness. Therefore, even if autistic people are simply afraid of loneliness, if they can persevere in solitude, they likely won't feel unhappy. She's never believed that companion robots are a good solution to autism, but the project still needs to be done well. Xianqi clapped her hands and laughed. Yes, that junior has good conditions already. She doesn't have to struggle much to live well. If she had followed Yu Qianzhen, she'd have to suffer for a while before getting better. That's too tortuous. Xiong Tanin frowned and glanced at Yu Qianzhen, who remained expressionless and motionless, seemingly determined to listen. He felt helpless. Bringing Yu Qianzhen here today to find a towel had been a mistake. He could understand Yu Qianzhen's frustration. After all, hearing people talk about you behind your back, and not all of it in praise, is never pleasant for anyone. If two people strive together and one of them lowers their starting line, it might be fine in the future, but if it doesn't, it's more likely to cause a lifetime of resentment. Feiyu analyzed the situation objectively, reflecting on previous cases. So, it's better to be well matched, Zin Yu Hong added. While personalities are unpredictable, at least being well matched is noticeable. I also think that people with similar family backgrounds tend to be more compatible in terms of lifestyles, interests, and hobbies, making communication and understanding easier, commented Karen Mok. Feiyu nodded in agreement. It is common sense to marry someone of equal social status. If you insist on marrying someone of unequal social status, either you have to have a necessary reason in the beginning, or you have to pay the necessary price in the end. Yu Qianzhen started walking towards the door. When Xiong Tanin closed the door of the warehouse, he heard a girl asking with a smile, what is a necessary reason? What is a necessary price? He became even more speechless. These girls used Yu Qianzhen's case as a case study to discuss the selection criteria in marriage and love. It was no wonder that Yu Qianzhen was secretly annoyed. Qianzhen, Xiong Tanin said apologetically, feeling sympathetic. Do you want to sit for a while and wait for me to finish reading the diary before leaving together? No, I'll go first. Yu Qianzhen shook his head and refused. It's understandable that girls talk a lot, and it's not advisable to criticize them too much if they occasionally talk about others behind their backs. However, while they didn't harbor any ill intentions, and their goal was to explore the true meaning of life, their words were extremely condescending. When they mentioned Yu Qianzhen, there was a hint of contempt, perhaps even unnoticed by themselves. Yu Qianzhen specializes in robot design and has collaborated with Xiong Tanin several times before. He is both a good student and a hard-working person, a poor kid who relies almost entirely on his own efforts. Xiong Tanin is in a similar situation, and the two of them get along very well. Yu Qianjun is not a loner, but he doesn't participate much in his class because he's busy with his part-time job. He usually chats and laughs with his close classmates, but Shuang Tanan can sense that he's actually quite sensitive. What the three girls said today would definitely make Yu Qianjun unhappy. Shuang Tanan thought of Miss Yan and her two neighboring friends, all of whom were from wealthy families, living comfortably and knowing no hardship. He also thought of their constant claims of being a good match, describing struggling with someone like Yu Qianjun as a step down from their starting line. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh, hoping Yu Qianjun would just let it go. Yu Qianjun left Shuang Tanan's office and walked a short distance before passing the entrance to the makeshift lounge where Feiyu and the others were. He paused, glanced sideways at the door, pursed his lips, and quickly strode out. Shuang Tanan finished his work and returned to the venue. He worked part-time as a robot manager at the Students' Activity Center, so he naturally had to stay until the dance ended. He saw Miss Yan, after returning from the lounge, sit briefly in a corner with the two neighboring girls before abruptly leaving. Yu Qianjun had been nowhere to be seen, and just when Shuang Tanan thought he'd lost interest and returned to his dorm, he stumbled upon him, amidst the throng of people happily dancing on the dance floor, dancing with a girl in a short, long, white puffy skirt. Shuang Tanan looked again, and the dress and puffy skirt spun into the depths of the carnival dance floor. Chapter 54 Evening Glow. On the Monday after the dance, the students from the West Dormitory moved back in. Everyone was delighted to find that their dormitories were brand new and the surroundings were as beautiful as before. Everyone resumed their research work while starting to organize their belongings. Shuang Tanan had made a promise before, so he made a video call to Feiyu and asked her about the solution for the pile of wet stones in the backyard. The dormitory management office will help with it. Feiyu's face was serious when she said this. Don't worry, Shuang Tanan saw that she seemed to be in the studio, with various tools on the table behind her. He thought she must be busy working. Miss Yan had her own rules, so he didn't say anything more at the moment. A few days passed, and on the weekend, Qi Wei and the others happily invited classmate Gui-san to visit their new villa, and then everyone would have a meal together. Classmate Yan, Shuang Tanan made a video call to Feiyu halfway. He saw her sitting by a tree, and the background was clearly her small courtyard, with green and white stones of all sizes stacked up half of the wall. Are you busy? Sorry to bother you. I was just about to go to Qi Wei and the others. Kegu was testing on that rainy day, and I took one of your baskets. Later, it was sealed away in our GUI department teaching warehouse along with the other project robots. I never had the chance to return it to you. I brought it here today. Can I bring it to you later? Feiyu, whose arms were sore from chiseling, nodded. Come on. The sky was a crimson, and the vibrant sunset glow spread freely across the distant forest. Since the torrential rain and floods, the weather had been beautiful day by day. Shuang Tanan parked the car by the peach grove and watched the warm red glow filter through the gurgling river, illuminating the peach blossoms. He walked along the riverside path, around the pink and white west wall, and the green lawn in front of the small building was completely bathed in the glow. The willows still drooped on the bank. The door of Qi Wei and his friend's building on the opposite bank was open. It was a little earlier than the agreed time, and the students had not yet arrived. What surprised him was that there was a red car parked in front of Fixu's gate. A thought flashed through his mind. Yan Fixu's car seemed to be orange. Could it be that when the hospital provided free maintenance to all the students affected by the disaster in Zisu district, she changed the color by the way? Shuang Tanan thought casually like this and went to the door. The door was wide open. The hall was bright and spacious. There were sofas but no one was sitting on them. Two people were standing and talking. Student Yan, I sincerely beg you, the boy who was speaking looked humble, while Fixu opposite him had a stern face. Shuang Tanan was holding the basket and was stunned for a moment outside the threshold. Then he reacted and said, Student Yan, I'm here to return the basket. Student Fan, you are here too. He quickly greeted the two of them and said, You guys chat? Student Yan, I put the basket here. After saying that, he was about to leave. I have an appointment with the students Shuang, Fixu said indifferently. Shuang Tanan raised his head and glanced at her face. He couldn't leave without saying anything, so he said, You guys chat first. I'll wait outside. He walked out the door, around the red car. And before he'd taken a few steps, Yi Xiaoguang came out from the other side. Seeing him, he waved cheerfully. Shuang Tanan stopped and waved, But Qi Changgong immediately retracted his hand. He turned to see Fan Cheng emerging from the small building with a frown on his face. Their eyes met, and Fan Cheng forced a smile. Perhaps feeling awkward, he shrugged and tilted his head, his resignation evident. After this gesture, he relaxed, offering a genuinely friendly smile and politely saying, "Hello, classmate Shuang. Hello, classmate Fan." Fan Cheng and Qi Wei had been staying at Shuang Tannen's building in the East District for a while, so they were familiar faces. After the two of them exchanged greetings, Fan Cheng got into the car without saying anything else. A moment later, he started the car and sped away through the bamboo forest. Shuang Tannen hesitated for a few seconds and walked back to the gate of the small building. The basket was still outside the threshold, but he saw a woman in black work clothes about to pass through the small courtyard door at the back of the hall. He bent down to pick up the basket, and just as he was about to call out, she heard the movement and turned around, her face still frosty. "Student, I'm here to return the basket." Shuang Tannen repeated it without hesitation, raised his arm and stretched it out, handed the basket into the threshold, and still stood outside the threshold. Feiyu was silent for a moment, nodded, and her facial expression was reluctantly softened after the small gesture. She walked back, took the basket, raised her chin and gestured towards the backyard, her voice still calm. "I happen to be practicing today. You seem to want to watch the middle practice process of the simulation experiment before. Since it's a coincidence, if you are free, you can come in and watch for a while." "Oh, okay, thank you." Shuang Tannen quickly concealed a hint of surprise. "I'll video call Qi Wei and the others and tell them I'll be there later, if you're not free." "If you're free," Shuang Tannen explained. "We don't have anything else to do, so we're here to take a look at the new look of their dorm and then have dinner together later." Feiyu hummed, thinking that these were the excuses for the frequent gatherings on the other side of the river. She was already feeling down about Fan Cheng's visit. Since Shuang Tannen had agreed to stay and see, it was up to him to adjust his schedule. She didn't want to make special arrangements for him later. Lately, things have been lining up. There's no room for the chairs. "If you want to sit, find a rock." "No problem, I'll stand." Ding ding ding, dong dong dong. Shuang Tannen stood at the foot of the courtyard wall. The entire courtyard was filled with rocks. The setting sun, not sparing any spot, shone into the courtyard. The sunset light slanted across the branches of the jacaranda tree, spreading to the inside of the courtyard wall. When Shuang Tannen stood there, it reflected his chest and forehead. He squinted slightly in the light and looked carefully at the foot of the jasmine tree. Feiyu sat cross-legged, holding the stone with her left hand and holding the hammer with her right hand, hammering again and again. Due to the vibration, a strand of hair was scattered from her bun and brushed against her cheek. "That's about it." She raised her head. At that time, the sunset had slipped higher up the courtyard wall, and there were not so many dots of sunset light in the crown of the jasmine tree. Shuang Tannen could easily see the redness on her face, the fine beads of sweat, and the occasional stone powder. "You can try it." Feiyu stood up and handed him the hammer. "Feel it." Shuang Tannen was stunned, but he didn't refuse. He sat on Feiyu's work mat and imitated her in raising the hammer. "Is that so? It doesn't matter what the movements and postures are, just do it naturally. Pay attention to your hands when chiseling, and use some strength." Ding ding ding, dong dong dong. Feiyu looked at the dent in the stone under Shuang Tannen's hand. With each chisel, a clearly visible deep mark appeared. With each chisel, an even more clearly visible deep mark appeared. She felt extremely resentful. The stone powder quickly covered his hand to the point of being a tiger's mouth. This was what it meant to be a complete achievement. "That's enough." Feiyu asked him to stop and said, "This is roughly how Shigu and Shi Lang work. You can see the difference. It mainly lies in the speed and strength, as well as the posture and sitting position of men and women. I still have work to do. You can go now. Thank you for letting me experience it." Feiyu waved her hand to see her off without saying much. Shuang Tannen turned to the peach blossom forest, got the car, crossed the stream, and went to his classmates. Qi Changgong came up to him and looked at him. "Tannen, you are surprisingly unharmed. If you don't come out, Xiaozhao and I are going to go to Yan Shizen's place pretending to borrow something and rescue you." "No need." Shuang Tannen laughed. "Classmate Yan and I are discussing the project. Sorry, I'm a little late." "Has everyone else left?" Qi Wei and Wu Jia went first. "The two of us stayed and waited for you to leave together," Fang Zhao said with a smile. "You don't know, Xia Guang said that he saw you queuing behind Fan Cheng to meet Yan Shizhen. We were so worried about you. There's a war between A and B recently, and we are afraid that you will accidentally enter the battlefield. What war between A and B? Shang Tanin turned his head to look at the opposite bank. The door of the pink and white building had been closed. In the twilight green, together with the lawn and the river, it was quietly embraced by the slightly intoxicating warm breeze. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Awesome People. Yan Shizhen and Fan Cheng. Feng Zhao pointed to the two buildings across the way. Fan Cheng's in trouble, Xia Guang continued. Remember that time I was stuck in the studio and the dorm management told me not to come back? That time, Yan Shizhen reported to the dorm management that she heard some strange noises in the bamboo forest. Shang Tanin nodded. It turns out Fan Cheng keeps something in his own dormitory building. Snakes, Shang Tanin blurted out. Exactly. Fan Cheng said he had a project to research this. Feng Zhao shook his head. Originally, after Yan Shizhen's report, he was very careful and managed it very well. But who knew that the flood washed away his snake nest? There's a snake nest, Shang Tanin asked in surprise. He said he hatched a nest before the rain, otherwise he would have moved them to the studio long ago. He has a studio, why would he keep such dangerous things in the dormitory area? Shang Tanin frowned. That's right. But he said that this species is not dangerous, and he put it in his dormitory building so that he can observe it day and night. He was also inspired by seeing Yan Shizhen requisition a section of the river at his doorstep as a simulated experimental site. The question is that classmate Yan got the consent of the dormitory management office, but did he submit an application to the dormitory management office? That's what you mean. He didn't submit an application and secretly raised experimental animals in the dormitory area. He was also very unlucky. When the flood came, people evacuated, but the snakes were not found. Clues were left in the house, and they were discovered by the dormitory management office when the west dormitory area was closed for renovation. Now this matter has alarmed his tutor, and he can't escape the punishment. What does this have to do with classmate Yan? Why is it called a battle between A and B? The dormitory management office severely reprimanded Fan Cheng and sent him a notice that he must obtain the understanding and consent of all the surrounding neighbors before he can continue to live here, otherwise he will have to move out. If he moves out, he will no longer be allowed to live in the West Dormitory, because they are afraid that the place is too big and he has tamed some strange animals. But if the people in the East Dormitory have objections to this, the dormitory management office will no longer help him arrange it, and he must find accommodation outside the school on his own. In short, it's very troublesome. So, he has been apologizing door to door these days, which is pitiful. Then classmate Yan refuses to forgive him. You saw it all. Xia Guang clicked his tongue. This is the third time. I don't even need to hear it. I only saw the listless look on his face when he walked out of Yan Shizhen's house, and I knew it. Hey, Tanin, they didn't quarrel when you bumped into them before, did they? No. Shang Tanin turned his head and asked Xia Guang and Feng Zhao, what about you? What about the other neighbors? Have they all forgiven you? How could I not forgive him? We all have, Feng Zhao shrugged. My neighbor has been doing this for so long, I can't say I don't forgive him. Besides, it's not a big deal. People in Department B like to do these crazy things. It's also for academic pursuits, not intentional. We all signed the letter of apology for him. Have your female neighbors signed it too, more or less. If the dormitory management hadn't sent out a small notice after we moved back, we wouldn't have known about this. Fan Chundu visited every house with such sincerity, and the girls were quite soft-hearted. I heard they all signed for him. Now only Yan Shizhen is left. Shang Tanin looked across the river. The surface of the stream was dyed a blue-gray in the twilight. The pink and white building was surrounded by a lush bamboo forest. The lights on the first and second floors were not on, and it seemed very quiet. I guess someone was still swinging a hammer under the tree in the backyard. When classmate Yan was doing the water sunflower experiment, he fell into the water and almost got bit by a snake, he said. There's such a thing? Then I understand. Yan Shizhen must have been terrified. No wonder she made such a big fuss when she heard some noise. Fan Cheng should at least make a few more sincere visits to persuade her. Fan Cheng doesn't keep it anymore, right? Shang Tenon asked again. How could he dare to keep it? He almost lost that project. He said his advisor scolded him. But his advisor also loves talent. He sent a formal letter to the hospital, explaining the biological safety of this kind of snake and promising to strictly supervise him in the future. He was lucky enough to only have a minor demerit. A few days later, Shang Tenon met He Fangyu, B3, in the elevator of his dormitory building. They lived on different floors and belonged to different departments. They were only familiar with each other when they took the elevator. This time, because of the flood, their classmates from the central and western dormitory areas settled there for a short period of time, and they got to know each other through Qi Wei and Fan Cheng. He Fangyu was talking to someone. What time will you be back today? Jizile Omai and the others have an appointment after dinner. You should be back by then, right? Okay. Otherwise, I will bring my classmates here, and I can only meet 1 or 2 people each time. That's not very efficient, right? He Fangyu nodded to Shang Tenon in a hurry. Old He, why are you so serious? Said the person next to He Fangyu. Actually, there's no need to go through so much trouble. Your classmate in Department B, what's the point of talking? Just ask him to send the documents over and I'll sign them for him. That's not good, not good. He Fangyu waved his hands repeatedly, chuckling. We still have to meet in person. My classmate is a very nice person and doesn't talk much. He really wants to visit everyone, but he doesn't know anyone on our floor, so he repeatedly asked me to help him make an appointment. Please. Now our Department B has 3 major and small projects coming down like crazy, and they say it's for our training. If we live outside, we won't be able to cope with the instructor's 3 summons a day. It's all the same. We're also very busy. Okay, I'll definitely be back after dinner tonight to see our future neighbors. Okay. The elevator opened, and He Fangyu and the people around him walked away, chatting and laughing. Shang Tenon also got a car and went to the studio in the Gibu teaching building to work all morning. Yi Xiaoguang called him to go down to eat at the door. During lunch, he chatted and asked about Fan Cheng. Yan Shizhen is the winner. Fan Cheng can't live here anymore, decided, he asked. That's for sure, but Fan Cheng hasn't booked a new dormitory yet. His application process this time is much more complicated than the usual one. The dormitory management office told him to find one himself, and once he has a place he's interested in, he has to ask his neighbors on the same floor to sign the consent form one by one. It's so troublesome, what a pity. He visited everyone here, and in the end, only Yan Shizhen didn't give him a signature, Qi Wei commented, his tone full of regret. Nothing I say works. Yan Shizhen didn't even give me a reason, she just said she wouldn't sign. Shang Tenon interjected, how did you know? Fan Cheng said so. Yi Xiaoguang shook his head. This guy is pitiful. He always goes to Yan Shizhen, groveling and blocking her door every day, trying to make a last-ditch effort. Yan Shizhen must be fed up with him. She used to leave in the morning and come back in the evening, pretty regular. But recently, Fan Cheng went there and couldn't find her. He begged us desperately, asking us to page him if we saw anyone in Yan Shizhen's building across the river. Alice, we've been neighbors for so many years, and we paged him twice for him, and guess what? Yan Shizhen opened the door and was right outside. After a few words, he left and slammed the door shut mercilessly. Student Yan was frightened by a snake. Shang Tenon said a few words, and the experiment was interrupted for this reason. After she reported the situation to the dormitory management office, Fan Cheng should have known it himself at that time. He should have been frank at that time, instead of continuing to cover it up and making others worry. I think if he had apologized to student Yan more sincerely, the situation might have turned for the better. Why not? Yes. He analyzed it himself. He bought flowers, fruits, and a big gift bag, and waited at Yan Shizhen's door with it. It was useless, all useless. Yan Shizhen said that the affairs concerning his dormitory were his personal business and she would not get involved in it. That's all, no mistake in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum. The implication is that there's no such thing as forgiveness or not, Fang Zhao sighed. Poor Fan Cheng. Our house was just renovated, and we've just sorted out the things that were soaked in the rain, and now he's moving again. We don't even know if the new place is ready. Plus, it's the middle of the school year, and there's already a lot on his plate. Now this matter hasn't been dealt with properly. No wonder he's so anxious every day, so, don't mess with Jia Badian. A bloody lesson. It was the weekend again, and Xiong Tannen was heading to the equipment room. He met He Fangyu and Fan Cheng in the basement garage, puffing out several bulging bags from a car. Hey, are you going out? He Fangyu greeted them enthusiastically. So many things. Xiong Tannen stopped. Moving for my classmate, Fan Cheng panted as he moved the large bag so it wouldn't block the aisle. He looked up and smiled handsomely. Is it easy to walk? It's easy. Do you need a hand? Xiong Tannen asked politely. No need. Fan Cheng gently patted the dust off his hands, leaned forward and stretched out his hand through the big bag, a little shyly. I'm moving today, and we will all live in the same building from now on. Please take care of me. I dare not. Xiong Tannen smiled. Welcome, welcome. Our place is getting more and more lively. This guy has used up all the housekeeping quota for this month. So we have to do it ourselves. He Fangyu grinned and wiped the sweat off his face. Do you want to put it in the elevator? I'll help you with some, Xiong Tannen said when he saw this. No, you go and do your work. Fan Cheng quickly stopped him. There are several of us classmates, and there are several cars following behind. They will be here soon. So many things, Xiong Tannen joked in surprise. There's nothing I can do, it's moving. Fan Cheng shook his head and looked at Xiong Tannen. At first, his eyes were as if he was meeting someone he didn't know well, but then he laughed to himself. I can't live there anymore. Do you know? Xiong Tannen had to smile. Fan Cheng's eyes were clear, so he was honest. I just heard a little bit. Tannen, your partner is his neighbor, He Fangyu said as he helped to put away several large bags. He's a great guy, can't blame her. I broke the rules, Fan Cheng continued, and said casually, Hi, Xiong Tannen, you are still partnered with classmate Yan, right? Yes, we have another collaborative project in progress. He Fangyu gave Xiong Tannen a look of self-pity. Fan Cheng felt embarrassed and continued to chat. Next time our department B cooperates with your department GUI, if there is a chance for us to partner together, it would be great. Yes, we are in the same building, so it is convenient for discussion, Xiong Tannen said with a smile. The three of them exchanged a few words, and when Fan Cheng and He Fangyu's classmates arrived, they said goodbye and went their separate ways. Chapter 56 3 Types of People. On this day, as usual, Xiong Tannen held a progress briefing meeting on the Stone Pot project. Feiyu arrived 3 minutes earlier than the agreed meeting time. Xiong Tannen and 2 apprentice fellow students were already present. When they saw Feiyu, they greeted her. Student Yan, senior sister Yan. Feiyu's eyebrows curved slightly, and she smiled faintly. Student Xiong, she nodded to the other 2 with a kind expression. The meeting was about to begin, but Yu Qianjun, who was responsible for the robot's appearance design, was still nowhere to be seen. After a while, Xiong Tannen received a video message from Yu Qianjun. Tannen, I'm still on the way. It will take about half an hour for me to arrive. Xiong Tannen hesitated slightly. If he was alone, it would be okay to wait for Yu Qianjun to come over before starting the discussion, but now there were other people waiting. I had some problems with an order in the equipment room, and I just fixed it, Yu Qianjun explained. Pay attention to your speed, don't rush, Xiong Tannen said with a smile, turning to face the others, but he was actually staring at Feiyu and asking, Student Yan, 2 junior brothers, Jin Chen can't make it in time. Should we start now, or wait another half an hour? Feiyu frowned. I have something to do later. Xiong Tannen nodded, not forcing her. Then let's get started. Feiyu always kept to herself. She spoke concisely, explaining the progress of her scenario and then discussing a few details about the development of the intelligence system with Xiong Tannen, explaining them very carefully. After more than 10 minutes, Feiyu felt that the project was pretty much communicated. The meeting was originally scheduled for half an hour, so although she stopped talking, she didn't get up and leave. Xiong Tannen glanced at her and turned to discuss with his apprentice. After a while, Yu Qianjun appeared at the door, panting slightly. Tannen, I'm sorry I'm late. He strode in, glancing around apologetically until his eyes landed on Feiyu. After a brief pause, he nodded. Student Yan. Feiyu nodded calmly. Yu Qianjun withdrew his gaze and quickly pulled up a chair next to his trainee. He asked, Tannen, where's the meeting going? Student Yan and I have discussed the scene simulation process and system development requirements. I'm waiting for your explanation of the exterior design. Yu Qianjun calmed his breath and immediately presented his initial concept. This time, in response to the request of the Ancient Culture Experience Center, he launched 2 models, one for men and one for women. The female version, of course, was identical to the sunflower picking robot, though slightly more robust, presumably to suit the physical demands of rock cutting. The men's model, however, required some discussion. While the muscular appearance wasn't controversial, Feiyu was solely responsible for the simulation experiments, and girls' body movements would undoubtedly differ from those of men. Any future data from Feiyu's experiments that reached Shangtanen would require corrections. Feiyu sat calmly. She would be responsible for the quality of her simulation reports, but not for simulating male behavior. Fine-tuning data due to gender differences in the simulated actors was a common occurrence during the development of intelligent systems, and it wasn't a difficult task, something Shangtanen would handle. Besides, she had already asked him to experience it briefly beforehand. She listened silently to Yu Qianjun's introduction, occasionally interjecting with questions from Shangtanen. When the 2 men finished speaking and there was a pause, she spoke. Mr. Shang, if there's nothing else, I'd like to excuse myself. Yu Qianjun glanced at Feiyu, then lowered his gaze and remained silent. Shangtanen, however, was already somewhat familiar with Feiyu's temperament. She was extremely punctual. They had previously finished discussing the simulation process, but because it was still in a meeting, she hadn't left early. Now, just as Yu Qianjun had begun, the meeting was over, so she decided to leave. While Miss Yan's behavior seemed illogical, she had already made it clear she was busy, and Shangtanen couldn't stop her. He nodded and finally asked, Mr. Yan, do you have any suggestions for the robot's exterior design? No, Feiyu said flatly. Well, since you're busy, please make yourself at your own convenience. I'll relay the status of your simulation project to Qianjun. Feiyu rose and left. Ever since the stone pot project began, she'd forced herself to sleep by practicing stone chiseling every night. After the turmoil and chaos of the torrential rain and flash floods, and now in the bustling East dormitory, her insomnia had lessened. Recently, when she returned to the West dormitory, her eastern neighbor had moved away after an incident, and she finally understood the reason. The dormitory management had also captured Fam Chang's experimental animals. She no longer felt suspicious at the side of the creek or bamboo forest. Every day, she enjoyed the flowers, the grass, the weather, and the people. Now, she felt her insomnia had resolved on its own. She had an appointment with her doctor for her final follow-up visit today. Feiyu glanced around politely, nodding slightly, her expression composed. Even when she glanced at Yu Qianjun, her glance was fleeting, a calm, unperturbed glance. She arrived at meetings on time and left on time, making sure everyone was informed and discussed in detail. The meeting's purpose had been achieved, and one of the day's assignments had been completed. Yu Qianjun arrived late, and the others continued the discussion with him. That was their business, and she didn't think it was rude or abrupt to leave at this time. Take a look at the 6-9 book forum. Yu Qianjun glanced at her straight and slender back, with no expression on his face. Feiyu was always indifferent to people or things that she didn't care about. During the briefing on the water sunflower picking project, Yu Qianjun was very attentive to her, pulling out a chair for her and asking her if she wanted to have dinner together, with a smile on his face. During the time she was staying in Dongsan district, she would run into Yu Qianjun in the corridor every 1 or 2 days. He would always come forward to greet her enthusiastically, usually saying 4 or 5 sentences, whether he wanted to say something or not, which made her confused and secretly disliked his long-windedness. At the masquerade, he asked her to dance 3 dances in a row. Today, apart from greeting her once when he entered the room, Yu Qianjun had not asked her any questions, nor had he looked her in the eye, let alone smiled. Feiyu had not noticed the difference in Yu Qianjun's attitude. However, even if she had noticed it keenly, she would not have taken it to heart. Yu Qianjun's expression and tone of voice were only related to his facial muscles and inner state of mind, and had nothing to do with her. In Feiyu's heart, she had no living relatives. Everyone she met was not a relative, and she did not need to pay any attention to them. To her, there were only 3 kinds of people in this world. The first type is the vast majority of people, people with whom she has nothing to do at all. They simply nod and exchange a few words, Adhering to the fair social rule of if you give me an inch, I won't give you an inch less, they greet each other and say goodbye when they leave, and that's all they need. Another type involves those with a bit of affection. For example, she owes Shuang Tian a favor, so she'll always find a way to repay it. Or, for example, she and the 2 girls or even the 3 guys next door have been friends through thick and thin together, so she should be more friendly. She could be more welcoming in small matters like lending a rag. Finally, there's the remaining type, those who confront her for no reason, and she'll retaliate without hesitation. Once the rebuttal is in place and the matter is settled, she'll forget them. A prime example of this type is her ex-fiancé, who irritated her greatly. Yu Qianchen, in her eyes, embodies the first type. Of course, that also includes Fan Chang, her neighbor to the east, who has moved away. Chapter 57 4-star recommended freelance order taker. The end of the school year has arrived. Feiyu packed her bags, preparing to return home to Mamang in 2 days. One thing has been weighing on her mind for the past few days, a robot upgrade job she posted on Starnet, but no Mamang robot workshop has been willing to take it. She knows the crux of the matter, the job is too small and the pay is low, which has led to the formal workshop's disdain. Feiyu's robots are a bit old, still the models from a few years ago when her father was still alive. They are quite diverse, with some for cooking, some for housekeeping, some to help with wood carving, some to teach Feiyu her early education, some to play with her as a child, and some to guard the gates, a total of 30. This number is neither too high nor too low, a bit embarrassing. It's not a large project, but it's more detailed and tedious than a mirrorless camera, which can be completed in a blink of an eye. If the robot workshop accepts the job, it will need to inspect all of her robots, perform personalized upgrades, and then return them to her in one piece, plus perform home debugging. The work involved required considerable effort and care, yet the profits were low. It's no wonder even small private workshops wouldn't take it. Feiyu was away studying, so she rarely needed her robots. Therefore, she planned to make do with upgrading them until she graduated and started working, then replaced them with newer models. Cost-effectively, it would be better to simply retire these outdated robots than to increase the cost of upgrading them. Feiyu was straightforward. Unable to compete with reputable workshops with guaranteed quality, she simply turned to the Mamang Freemen's Union for assignments. The Freemen's Union was full of talented and skilled professionals, so she offered the same pay. Furthermore, considering that private orders didn't necessarily require dedicated workspaces, she specifically stated that work could be done at the contractor's home, with meals provided. The only concern was safety concerns with strangers. Feiyu's additional conditions were stringent. She required the contractor to be a Mamang native, to be named in their name, and to have a recommendation from the Freemen's Union with a 4-star rating or higher. The last requirement is very rare. Those who can issue a 4-star recommendation to the employer must have completed more than 100 orders in the Freelancers Union and have never had any major complaints. The service quality traceability period can be extended to 1 year after completion. The most important thing is that the 4-star recommendation will disclose the basic information of the order taker, including name, gender, age, expertise and recent valid residence. In less than half a day, she had received more than 10 feedbacks. Feiyu was overjoyed. She originally thought that the 4-star recommendation requirement would result in few responses, but she didn't expect that the Freelancers Union in Mamang was full of experts and could give her room to choose. When her father was the housekeeper, he was the one who took the lead in all matters of the family. Her father's management style was different from hers, and he was much more free and easy than her. Feiyu had never seen her father go to the Freelancers Union to find someone. He didn't even bother comparing the reputations of various workshops for such trivial matters. He had a single trick: he hired lawyers for everything. Any disputes never came to the house, as the lawyers resolved them through legal and reasonable channels. Of course, her father had to pay a large annual fee for these services. Feiyu sighed inwardly. Her father was more tolerant than her, because he was a better housekeeper than she was. The Yan family had flourished under her father's leadership, and he had never worried much about the family business except for her. When it came to her turn, she implemented a policy of contraction during her studies, cutting out all unnecessary expenses. Although her original intention was simply that she was the only one left at home and didn't need luxury, preferring a low-key and pragmatic lifestyle, it was obvious that the family looked bleaker than before. She was so pragmatic now that she not only hired craftsmen herself, but also couldn't find a formal workshop, so she had to rely on freelance workers. Feiyu was a little ashamed of her father. She had said to him at the beginning, "Don't worry, now it seems that her ability to handle mundane affairs is really not that good." She had already planned that if the Free Union couldn't find anyone, she would put the matter of upgrading the robots aside and reluctantly use them until she graduated. Such a casual and compromising mentality is not what the head of the family who takes good care of the family business should have. It was noon and the weather was just right. Feiyu sat down on the balcony on the second floor, brewed a pot of flower tea, took a sip, and browsed the information of the applicants one by one. Suddenly, she paused, subconsciously straightened her back and sat up straight, looked at the introduction of the fifth applicant back and forth twice, and the corners of her mouth twitched slightly. She didn't expect that Shuang Tannen was also from Mamen, and he obviously had a lot of experience in taking orders as an amateur, so he could get a 4-star recommendation from the Free Union. Zuli District? Feiyu tilted her head and thought for a moment. She knew very little about what was commonly known as the lower 6th district of Mamen, having rarely visited it. She knew only vaguely that it was populated by ordinary people with limited means, many of whom relied on social assistance, and that there were vast tracts of public housing there. Feiyu's family lived in Hisan district, the second of Mamen's upper 3 districts, a residential area for the wealthy. She had always remembered her area as sparsely populated, spacious, and quiet. Mamen's 3rd district was also home to the wealthy, and the 1st district was even more so, the wealthy and aristocratic. Feiyu had spent her entire life in the upper 3 districts, where she had everything from school and entertainment to travel with her father to other planets. The lower 6th district was unfamiliar to her. The only time she interacted with the people of the lower 6th district was when she went to the Mamen Administrative Center for Business or to attend festivals and commemorations, where all Mamen residents were welcome. That's when she saw many of them. She remembered the first time she was a child, riding a hovercar mid-air over the lower 6th district and looking down, exclaiming to her father, "It's so crowded there." Shuang Tannen, who lived in the lower 6th district, must have come from a less fortunate family, taking orders even during holidays. Feiyu glanced sideways across the river. The area in front of the 3-person villa was quiet. The neighbors in Gui district had probably gone home. In the flower bed in front of the building, the wood roses were once again overrun by overgrown weeds. Based on her observations over the years, the wood roses would need to endure another holiday until they were completely overrun. Only when the new school year began and Qi Wei and the others returned for their break would the area around them be cleared and cleared. Feiyu felt that Shuang Tannen seemed to get along well with Qi Wei and the other 3 boys. After the successful completion of this year's stone pot project, she and Shuang Tannen had no further contact, though she had occasionally caught a glimpse of him attending some class reunion event organized by someone across the river. She assumed that Qi Wei, Fang Zhao, and Yi Xiaoguang were similar to her. Their holidays were theirs, and after a busy school year, they wouldn't take odd jobs during their break. Feiyu couldn't help but sigh again. Shuang Tannen worked in the field of robotic intelligent system development, and he had already accumulated so much project experience before graduation. He wouldn't have to worry about finding a job in the future. He was quite capable. Feiyu glanced at the information of the applicants behind her, then glanced back at the ones in front of her. 2 or 3 of them seemed to have more project experience than Shuang Tannen, but she naturally chose Shuang Tannen. She and he both graduated from the Donglan Research Institute and had worked together before. Shuang Tannen was a decent person, and she wanted to know him better than anyone else. She quickly confirmed the candidate for the order with the Freemen's Union. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 post, 1 content, 1 book, 1 bar. A minute later, everything was settled. Feiyu chose the most generous payment method, paying the full project fee before work began, and also covering the commissions owed to the Freemen's Union by both the task issuer and the contractor. What Feiyu didn't know was that, out of respect for their clients' interests, the Freedom Union would only pay Shuang Tannen 70% of their wages, with the remaining 30% transferred to his account upon completion. However, her payment method was a testament to the client's high level of trust in the order taker, and Shuang Tannen's credit rating within the Mamen Freedom Union would improve considerably. Chapter 58 Welcome to my home. As soon as Feiyu returned home, she immediately transitioned from student to parent. Her schedule was packed, and the first thing she had to do was inspect her home. While the robot cleaned regularly, She lived there during the holidays and had different requirements for her home environment. After a thorough inspection, Feiyu identified several areas for them to address. As usual, she needed to meet with lawyer Qin to discuss family tax returns. Of course, before that, Feiyu needed to furnish her own study, rather than constantly occupying her father's rosewood study. Feiyu hoped that the upgraded housekeeping robot would have interior design capabilities of moderate aesthetics. It would create a simple, elegant design draft for her and list of various furnishings, which she would add to. This way, she would have a study ready for meetings with lawyer Qin. Therefore, the robot upgrade took precedence over the study layout in her appointment with him. At 9 o'clock on Feiyu's third day at home, the chief robot informed her that Shuang Tanin had arrived. She paused for a moment, then specifically instructed the chief robot to lead him to the living room. Her living room was large, and it would have seemed too empty for her and Shuang Tanin to talk in. However, she owed Shuang Tanin a great debt, and this first visitor's reception had to be formal. Feiyu adjusted her skirt and went downstairs. "Sir, the owner warmly welcomes you. Please park your hovercar along the designated route. You can choose to operate it close to the ground or in the air." The manor gate slowly opened with the sound of a robot. Shuang Tanin raised an eyebrow, quite surprised by the owner. This customer had generously paid his salary up front and covered his commission on his first visit. Such behavior was not uncommon, but it was usually only done by repeat customers. Now, the other party's welcome was unexpectedly friendly, not even minding the outsider hovercar flying in the air within his manor. He remained respectful of etiquette and drove the hovercar along the road. It was a long way from the gate to the arched flower gallery where parking was possible. Shuang Tanin glanced around from the car and saw only a robot mowing the lawn. Out of professional habit, he took a closer look at the robot and determined that this gardening robot was more than 5 years old in terms of appearance, and judging from its speed and technique, its intelligence system was definitely outdated. Shuang Tanin studied the field of robots and came into contact with many users, each with their own usage habits. Some people blindly pursue the replacement of robots, but some people are very slow to upgrade robots. As long as they can be used, they will continue to use them. From this gardening robot, Shuang Tanin thought to himself that this customer probably belongs to the latter. The robots in his home are probably at the critical point of use. At the entrance of the flower corridor, a smiling male robot was waiting respectfully. "Sir, please follow me." Shuang Tanin nodded and followed. This butler robot must have been a high-end custom model many years ago. If it needs to be upgraded, it will probably take more effort. The manor is very large. The robot led Shuang Tanin through the flower corridor and walked along a section of bluestone road. The natural, raw stone cutting and polishing showed no signs of any later fine processing. Some of the stones were even irregular, with a corner missing. They were simply laid casually on the ground, winding along the way, creating a leisurely and quaint atmosphere. At the end of the bluestone path, one could see the main building in elegant tones. To Shuang Tanin, this layout seemed to evoke a particularly fresh and rich retro atmosphere. A robot led Shuang Tanin into the living room. A large window in front of him caught his eye. He was initially surprised to see a river behind the building, with a very rare stone-arched bridge. A closer look revealed that it was a handmade paper painting, framed in an unknown light brown wood, with light gray gauze on both sides. It was so lifelike on the wall that it deceived his eyes. No wonder he had been secretly wondering why the light in front of and behind the house seemed slightly different. "This is a painting by Master Fei Pangba." Shuang Tanin tilted his head at the sound, and just as he was about to greet him seriously, his eyes paused, and he was obviously surprised. "Student Yan, hello, Student Shuang, welcome to my home." Feiyu stood up from the sofa, a faint smile on her face, her expression more relaxed and easygoing than when she was in college. She was wearing a violet knee-length skirt and violet leather boots, simple, low-key and capable. Shuang Tanin was stunned for a moment, but quickly came back to his senses. "Hello, Student Yan, I didn't expect it to be you." He apologized politely. "I was rude just now." Feiyu raised an eyebrow and smiled, easily telling that Shuang Tanin must not have heard of the name of Moming's top painter from 40 or 50 years ago. She did not introduce him in detail, but only talked about her childhood embarrassing moments. "I was also fooled the first time. I thought my father had opened a window in the wall." "Is your father home?" Shuang Tanin asked politely. "He's not here. He passed away." Shuang Tanin was stunned and immediately said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "It doesn't matter," Feiyu still had a smile on her face. She raised her hand and said, Mr. Shang, please sit down and have a cup of tea first. I want to discuss with you the upgrade requirements for my robot. As the tea was served to Shuang Tannen, it had a light fragrance. The tea was slightly green, and the small leaves inside were just beginning to unfold. 3 or 2 small round beads were rolling at the bottom of the cup. Shuang Tannen picked up the teacup, and the small round beads just happened to expand in sequence. Layers of yellow petals were thin, translucent, and soft, and they actually bloomed into flowers in the water. With the tips of the tender leaves floating lightly in the tea, it was very beautiful. He took a sip, put down the teacup, smiled at Feiyu opposite him, straightened his back and listened attentively. My requirements are not high. You just need to let them support me until I graduate, Feiyu said clearly. I will eliminate this batch after graduation. No mistakes, just 1 sentence, 1 post, 1 content, 1 book, 1 bar. Shuang Tannen nodded. Although he heard from her words that she seemed to be in charge of the household, he couldn't help but be curious about whether there were other people in her family, but he didn't ask abruptly. I have a small request. Please load some of the most advanced home design functions for my housekeeping robot. I want to set up a study. No problem, then there are no other requirements. Your workshop is in the robot restroom. If you need to start work somewhere else, please feel free to do so. The robot restroom is very convenient, Shuang Tannen said with a smile. Feiyu nodded and said, if you are tired during breaks, you can go to the reception room to rest. It's next door. I'll take you there to see it. She stood up politely, and Shuang Tannen stood up too, but declined politely. Student Yan, there's no need to be so troublesome. I don't really need to rest while I'm working. Feiyu glanced at him. When she posted the task, she didn't know who she would invite. She didn't like strangers staying in her house for too long, so she tightened the deadline and only gave 2 days. She thought that if others couldn't take it up, they basically couldn't be called capable people, so she just filtered out the mediocre people who had no great abilities. At this time, she was still very kind to Shuang Tannen, a classmate in the same college, and took the initiative to take care of him. 2 days may be a bit rushed. You just need to complete the order at your normal working speed. Don't rush. It doesn't matter if it takes a day or 2 more. I won't complain, thank you, Shuang Tannen smiled. I can finish it within 2 days. There is another order later. Feiyu couldn't help but glance at him, thinking that Shuang Tannen's vacation was so busy. Chapter 59, Yan Family Heritage. The robot restroom was separate from the main residence, situated in a corner of the back garden. Feiyu, feeling she owed Shuang Tannen a favor, treated him with extreme friendliness. After meeting him, she didn't treat him like a hired hand, but personally led him to the back garden. The Yan family's back garden actually had a river and a bridge. Shuang Tannen was shocked to discover that Master Fei Pangba's painting bore a striking resemblance to the actual Yan family garden. Under refreshing sunlight, Feiyu and Shuang Tannen ascended the bluestone steps of the small arch bridge. For several years, apart from the lawyer, the family rarely had outsiders visiting. Shuang Tannen was a good acquaintance, and Feiyu felt a bit like the owner of the place she had brought her neighbor's sister to visit when she was a child. At this moment, she pointed her finger at a square stone house covered with the green vines on the other side of the river and introduced it. That's my grandfather's studio. Shuang Tannen looked over. The stone house was a seamless hole, and the entrance was invisible. Outside the house, stones of various shapes and sizes were rolling around. There were also several long stones, big enough for people to lie on, polished to shine. Many purple, pink, and blue flowers sprouted from the corners. It seemed that no special care had been taken, and the grass and trees were allowed to grow freely, full of natural wildness. On the side of the rolling stone field, there was a very thick twisting vine tree. The trunk required 3 people to surround it. A tree house was faintly visible in the treetops 4 or 5 meters above the ground, and the vines below had been bent into a swing frame. Shuang Tannen had just helped out with childcare for half a day yesterday and had taken his floormate, Qiang, to the community center to play on the swings. However, the center, shared by 6 blocks, was still as packed as it had been when he was a kid. He and Qiang had to wait in line for a long time before they got a turn. After getting off, the child, still not satisfied, pleaded softly for him to wait in line again. Shuang Tannen had spent the entire afternoon waiting in line for the swings, which amused him. he couldn't help but take a second look at the Yan family's all-natural living rattan swing. Even from a distance, he sensed no built-in protective systems on the swing's arms. To the children of Zuli district, the idea of using such old rattan for a swing so carelessly was unimaginable. The ones he'd used as a kid, and the ones Xiaoqiang uses now, were all mechanical arms at the center. Once they got on, they were clamped by the seat's waist. The arms meticulously maintained the pendulum's motion at a constant angle, and when the time came, they had to dismount. Because there were so many children playing around, the queuing process was extremely rigid, and no one was allowed to play twice in a row. So even if you went very early that day and there was no one in line behind you, the children who could have played a second time could only look on with amusement and hope that others would come. "That's my father's studio," a polite and calm voice sounded. Shuang Tanin followed Fei Zai down the bridge and looked in the direction of Fei Zai's finger. This log building with carved beams and painted rafters had 3 entrances in front and back. In front of the house was a very wide fenced courtyard with many logs lying on the ground. Shuang Tanin didn't know much about wood, but just by glancing at the grain and color of the wood core at the cut, even an outsider could roughly tell that there must be valuable tree species inside. On the planet Mammon, private logging by ordinary citizens is forbidden. Once, a mischievous teenager in Shuang Tanin's neighborhood, curious about a flowering tree bearing fruit in the public green space, broke off a branch at night. As a result, he was only 2 months away from becoming eligible for adult-sized rental housing upon turning 16, but his eligibility for this benefit was punitively revoked for 4 years. This also reduced his parents' social contribution points, as direct guardians, to almost 0. Shuang Tanin followed Fei Zai around the path beyond the fence and saw the meticulous craftsmanship of the fence. Although it was made up of rows of small trees, they were meticulously pruned to prevent undue growth. It looked as if a retractable shield had been placed underneath, presumably to protect the trees from inclement weather. Fei Zai glanced up at the wooden plaque beneath the eaves of the last 2-story building. Unable to suppress a sense of guilt, she sighed, apologized to her father, and lowered her head to lead the way. The plaque hung high and prominently, its characters large and deeply engraved, visible even from several arrows' distance away, as if it were his father's call. Shuang Tanin had naturally spotted it too. The plaque read Xiaoqiao Residence. The doors and windows on the second floor were tightly closed, but the lattices were intricately carved with various birds and beasts from the planet Mammon, a truly exquisite sight. Combining this with the inscription on the plaque, he easily imagined this was Feixiao's resting place. Indeed, this was Feixiao's father's wish. A master of wood carving, he truly desired to pass on his craft to his only daughter. Despite Feixiao's lack of talent or interest in the area, he had urged her several times. "Xiaoqiao, I don't want you to be a master of wood carving. You just need to learn some techniques of a craftsman. Maybe you can learn something concrete to help my grandson understand it through inheritance from the next generation." Feixiao has never been a timid girl since she was a child. She replied to her father frankly, "Then do you have the opportunity to help with the inheritance from the next generation?" The father was choked. The 2 generations of the Yan family's great-grandfather were bold. They saw the opportunity to engage in interstellar trade and resell to accumulate family wealth. They supported the old man in wealth. The old man also tried business, but found that he was not very interested. He traveled around and discovered and cultivated the skill of stone carving. Since then, he led the family's transformation. He also wanted to pass on the skills to Feixiao's father. He didn't expect that his son did have artistic talent, but his talent was in wood. After Feixiao's birth, the old man still refused to give up and even set his sights on his granddaughter. Feixiao happily played hide-and-seek with a nanny robot in the rolling stone field outside her grandfather's studio, seeing only stones, never developing even the slightest interest in identifying and carving unusual stones. Her struggles carving a stone part last school year showed that artistic talent and bloodline are 2 separate paths of inheritance. Old Man Yan had failed to successfully pass down his craft from one generation to the next, and Feixiao's father hadn't lent much of a helping hand, so naturally, he couldn't expect Feixiao to help him pass down his wood carving skills. This was indeed a daunting task. Both Old Man Yan and his father held the title of Master Craftsman of Mammon Star Civilization. If Feixiao could also be recognized as a Master Craftsman in any area, the Yan family would qualify as a Mammon Star Special Contribution Family, a prestigious title with numerous benefits. Although Feiyu had no interest in either stone carving or wood carving, She still had the responsibility to work hard since her family had reached a point where she could take a step forward with just a little effort. She was busy with her studies now, but fortunately she didn't have to get married after graduation. She was thinking about returning to Mom-and-Star and devoting herself to developing a skill. Perhaps she could find inspiration from the simulation experiments she had done, study hard, and in a few years, try to be evaluated as a master craftsman. No mistakes, just one poem, one release, one content, 1/6, 1/9, one book, one forum. Shuang Tianan didn't say much. Feiyu was walking silently on the path, as if lost in thought. He followed her, his eyes just looking forward, not looking around. The robot restroom is over there. Feiyu came back to his senses and pointed to the large oval warehouse in the northwest corner of the garden. Shuang Tianan went in and saw a room full of robots quietly waiting for sleep, most of which were defense robots. Do you need me to wake them up? Chapter 60 Tattle Lord. Not yet, Shuang Tianan said, his movements very skillful. After a few inspections, he turned to Feiyu and said, this model is a bit old. Due to the limitations of its early internal structure, I'm afraid it can't be upgraded to the latest residential defense performance. I need to disassemble it and modify some parts and the docking station, which requires the owner's authorization. Feiyu nodded decisively. She watched Shuang Tianan work quickly and steadily, and couldn't help but ask curiously, can you design and assemble blank robots yourself, just like the people in Division C? It's simple. Yes, Shuang Tianan replied, without any arrogance. Feiyu was a little impressed. She was annoyed by those boastful people who boasted about their abilities with only a little knowledge. Shuang Tianan gave her the overall impression of being gentle and reliable. When Shuang Tianan saw two nanny robots wearing women's clothing, he deliberately stepped back to avoid the robots' elaborate and intricate large skirts. Father Yan doted on his only daughter. He knew the nanny robots would often hold and carry little Feiyu, so he wanted to ensure she felt comfortable. Therefore, he custom-made the two nannies with Mama Xing's high-end fabric for infant and toddler dresses, a naturally smooth, low-production fiber. Ada and were my nannies when I was little, but they haven't been used in over a decade, Feiyu explained. I used to let them out for a walk and stretch their legs, but in recent years, I haven't used them at all. If it's too much trouble, these two can be left alone, given their obsolescence, erasing their owner's information, sending them to a robot recycling facility for disassembly, and remelting the parts might be the best way to reuse them. Do you want to use them? Shuang Tianan asked, turning his head. Feiyu was both amused and annoyed. Could she still order these two around to sing her lullabies, wipe her sweat, or feed her? They should still be able to serve tea and water in the study, but I don't want them to wander around for a while and end up searching endlessly for the child. A nanny robot without a child to care for would fall into a perpetual cycle of confusion. Ultimately, finding the child becomes their ultimate goal. After Feiyu grew up, her father, nostalgic for the past, kept Dada and Erhua intact. Later, when Feiyu took charge of the household alone, she sorted out everything before leaving for Donglin Mechanical College and, out of kindness, let them out to relax. Unexpectedly, the two soon came running to her in a panic, reporting, Zuxu is missing. No, she's not gone. She's grown up, and now she's me. While the child nanny could identify Feiyu, regulations prohibited them from collecting biological samples from adults, thus preventing them from completing the most rigorous and reliable autonomous identification procedures. Feiyu was busy at the time and didn't have time to attend to them. Ada and had been off work for years, unable to confirm with absolute certainty that Feiyu was the grown-up Zuxu. Frustrated and conflicted, they kept searching for her, nearly triggering the missing persons alarm system in the administrative center. In her frantic activity, Feiyu became so annoyed by them that she never let them out for a stroll again. Shuang Tianan glanced at Feiyu's slightly frowned brows, and felt that she was reluctant to let go, so he said, I can convert them into housekeeping robots. Feiyu looked at the two nannies and immediately said, that would be the best. Your manager's authority to mobilize and manage these robots needs to be blocked first. After all upgrades are completed, the management network can be re-established. It may be a little inconvenient for you these 2 days, I know, it's up to you. Feiyu nodded in understanding. There is nothing important at home these 2 days. I will ask the manager to bring several robots outside to you later. That's not necessary. I can do it in batches. The work arrangements were almost communicated, and Feiyu instructed other chores. As for meals, there will be nutritional supplements at noon. I will ask the manager to bring them to you in a while. Dinner is at 6 o'clock in the evening, and we will have dinner in the restaurant in the main building. Is that okay, Student Yan? You don't have to worry. I brought nutritional supplements. It's written on the task list that I'll provide meals, so you don't need to bring any nutritional supplements, Feiyu said straightforwardly. It's settled. If you need anything else, feel free to video chat with me. I'm on the second floor of the main building. Go ahead and get busy. Feiyu didn't bother Shuang Tianan the entire day. Shuang Tianan was also efficient. He discussed the general direction and small details with Feiyu from the beginning, and there was no more nagging video chats during work. The kitchen robot was at Shuang Tianan's place, so Feiyu cooked a meal herself in the afternoon, preparing 3 dishes, 1 soup, and 2 desserts. She walked through the back garden to invite Shuang Tianan to dinner. Shuang Tianan was dressed in a blue and black work suit, busy among a bunch of naked robots. Mr. Shuang Tianan raised his head. At the door of the robot restroom, a figure stood tall and straight. The setting sun rested on the branches of a tree in the distance, burning quietly and intensely behind her. Before sinking below the horizon, Taking, Maman's guardian star, wasn't obstructed by the dense skyscrapers of Zuli district, nor did it cast a fleeting afterglow across the facades, casting a few streaks of repeatedly refracted light. Instead, it simply lay unimpeded behind her shoulder, seemingly melting her hair, blown red by the evening breeze. Shuang Tianan narrowed his eyes subconsciously. The Yan family must have intentionally left a time lag between indoor and outdoor light. Even after the door to the robot restroom slid open, the area still bordered by the entrance, half a vast orange twilight and half a dimmed indoor light. It's said that this is the fashion of Mamang's wealthy districts, to seek out every detail of life that allows for a return to nature, a moment of harmony with nature. The light in the robot restroom finally slowly merged with the light from the sky outside, blending into a uniform soft brightness. Shuang Tianan then noticed that Feiyu had changed her clothes, from the violet dress of the morning to pale vermilion. Mr. Shuang, it's time for dinner, Feiyu invited calmly. Actually, the scene before her looked a bit strange at first glance. With the exception of Shuang Tianan, all the robots around were naked. However, she maintained her composure, elegantly staring directly at Shuang Tianan's face, her gaze focused on the bridge of his nose and the area between his eyebrows. Even though her field of vision was completely unobstructed. It also included his hand resting on Ada's waist. All the robots in Feiyu's family were handed down from their father. Old Man Yan was never vague when selecting robots. In terms of physical structure, each one had to exude a natural beauty like a real person from the inside out. Ada was designed to be more voluptuous than air. When Shuang Tianan was working, he removed his elegant, puffy-skirted uniform, revealing the smooth, delicate bionic skin on Ada's outer shell. Under the light, it was worthy of the praise of ice skin. Okay. I'll put this away for a bit, I'll be right there, Shuang Tianan smiled. Feiyu nodded. Seeing him naturally lower his head and continue to busy himself, she said nothing more, waiting at the door to enjoy the evening breeze. After a while, she noticed that many robots, including those tall and mighty defense robots, seemed to have slightly adjusted their direction and were no longer facing her. She glanced at the backs of the robots, glanced at Shuang Tianan who was shuttling among them for inspection, and turned her head to look at the sunset outside. Her mind was wandering to other things. Given his mental state, he would not do well in the human body and high-level simulation class. Chapter 61 Simple Food. The wind blew the hem of her scarlet skirt. The trees under the bridge reached over the blue stone railings, their blossoms lush and vibrant, still radiant against the dusky green. Feiyu made way to the middle of the bridge. Shuang Tianan, who was walking on the side, had space and followed suit, stepping sideways and avoiding the branches with his shoulder tilted. Feiyu heard her asking, "How is the progress today? The defense robots are all usable and will not affect tonight's security. In addition, your nanny robot has been modified, and the gardening and housekeeping have all been upgraded," Shuang Tianan explained comprehensively. "Tomorrow, those special robots and your steward will be upgraded. Those apprentice robots are doing odd jobs in my grandfather and father's workshop." Feiyu stepped onto the fallen flowers on the stone steps and gave one more instruction. "They are custom-made and have never responded to the Robot Apprentice Union's invitation to join. I hope your upgrade program can block this kind of invitation information more completely." Okay, perhaps Shuang Tianan's concise and sharp answer made Feiyu feel that she, the employer, was talkative and demanding. She added, My grandfather and father don't like their apprentice robots to share too much useless information with other robots. Yes, many people prefer to keep things simple. Feiyu couldn't help but turn her head, and her pair of autumn eyes cast at Shuang Tianen's face and swirled around for a few times. Shuang Tianen seemed to sense something and met her gaze, and Feiyu slightly raised the corner of her mouth. He was good, and he explained very well the intentions of the old man and the old man to prevent technology leaks. You will be late going back today. Feiyu changed the subject and asked casually, does your family know? Shuang Tianen smiled, and his voice became more gentle in the evening breeze wrapped in the fragrance of flowers. I know, I told you before I left. Feiyu paused, a little envious of Shuang Tianen for having a family, but she kept her duties as a lady and did not continue to inquire about his family situation. They had talked about work, there was no need to introduce the garden, and they had talked about small talk, so Feiyu was left speechless. She walked forward for a while in silence with Shuang Tianen, and then she said, Mr. Shuang, how was your vacation? Shuang Tianen was surprised that she could still speak. He was concentrating on walking. After a moment of hesitation, he replied, not bad, Mr. Yan, how about you? I'm fine too. Feiyu thought for a moment and added, I'll be completely free after this busy period. How about you? Oh, I have some orders to take, and I will be almost free after the new year. Oh, this led to another silence. However, the main building was just around the corner. The two of them walked in the colorful gravel on the path, listening to the rustling footsteps, which was not too awkward. Shuang Tianen followed Feiyu up the stairs of the main building. The lights lit up one by one, like a blooming lotus, winding all the way from the porch to the dining room, like gradually lighting up a crystal palace. The grand and magnificent scene surprised Shuang Tianen, and he paused. Feiyu tilted her head and said with a smile, classmate Shuang, please follow me. She was quite satisfied. With this handmade meal, she could finally repay Shuang Tianen for the favor she owed him at the academy. He helped her fish out the peachwood hairpin from the water, and when the flood came, he drove her back to the dormitory to get clothes. She put her heart into this meal tonight, from selecting ingredients to making it, and was busy for half the afternoon. The only thing was that the robots couldn't be used yet, which was a little lacking in the welcome ceremony. Otherwise, with robots standing on both sides of the aisle politely leading the way, the dinner would seem more formal and sincere. The main dining room of the Yan family is not often used. When her father was alive, the father and daughter preferred to eat in the small dining room. When Feiyu was alone, she was sometimes lazy and didn't even go to the small dining room. She would ask the butler to send the nutritional supplements to her room. Today's reception for Shuang Tianen was according to the standards for distinguished guests. Mr. Shuang, do you prefer the restaurant's original setting, or would you like to see something different? Feiyu asked thoughtfully. Like a starry sky or the seaside, Shuang Tianen stood at the restaurant's entrance, looking inside. The room was deep and spacious, with light brown walls, simple yet elegant. Several paintings hung on the walls, and antique shelves and floor-standing vases were placed in the corners, making the restaurant seem even more spacious. The floor was particularly eye-catching. The stone with a natural pattern on a bright white background was laid with great craftsmanship, like flowers blooming on the smooth surface of a lake. In the center, the largest double-petaled blue-purple flower, its beauty outshone all others. The long, pale gold wooden dining table seemed to be supported by this flower, already set with fruits and a variety of exquisite plates and bowls. We have a Red Sea soft finned fish dish for dinner. Do you want it paired with a coral valley on the seabed over there? Shuang Tianen's gaze shifted from the two chairs at either end of the table to Feiyan's face, and he smiled politely. I can do anything. Don't worry too much. Feiyan stared at him intently, then decided to continue eating in the restaurant's original setting. She hated the situational catering course and the ladies' program the most. She had just passed it that year, and the conclusion was that it was a bit artificial, but it gave her the basic skills to be selected and recruited as a junior situational catering chef. Feiyan had originally prepared several scenarios for her dinner, but since Shuang Tianen didn't have any particular requirements, she simply said, Mr. Shuang, please sit down. Oh, no, I'll do it myself. She waved her hand to stop him, refusing his offer to pull out a chair for her, and motioned him to take a seat at the other end of the table. Thank you, Shuang Tianen said politely as he sat down, raising his eyebrows, looking across the large bouquet of green leaves and flowers rising from a clear jade vase in the center of the table, at Feiyan in the main seat across from him. Student Shuang, I'm honored to dine with you today. I hope you forgive the simplicity of the dishes. Shang Tenen's lips curled up, a gentle smile. Student Yan, I'm truly sorry to bother you today. Feiyu finished her polite remarks in a measured manner, wasting no more time, and raised her hand to toast the wine. It was a puree of a rare plant, the radish root, imported from the remote planet Liala. Mang Yi, Mo Mang's largest interstellar trading agent, occasionally supplies it, but requires patience and a waiting list. The Yan family had been involved in interstellar trade for generations, and Mang Yi had a small stake in it when it was still a relatively young business. They had some connections there, and even the old man's generation still had some connections, so it was easier for him to buy rare items than others by simply asking. Later, Feiyu's father became a woodcarver. After his father's death, Mang Yi's high-end VIP card was automatically transferred to Feiyu's father. Dill pulp is very rare. It is the collection of Feiyu's father many years ago. After Feiyu became the sole steward of the family, she never had guests at home, and several boxes of dill pulp have been buried in the warehouse. Fortunately, this product becomes more fragrant with age. She took the first sip of the bright yellow dill pulp and looked quietly at the end of the long table. Shang Tenen sat upright and waited for the host to take the first sip of the wine, according to etiquette, before raising his glass. A fresh fragrance spread in his mouth, passed through his throat, and penetrated warmly into his stomach. They ate in silence. In the huge restaurant, there were only the occasional tapping sounds of knives and forks against plates, like a small melody that was tinkling in an unknown tune, stuttering to make up for the scattered sounds of activities in the empty restaurant. This meal was grand and quiet. The two of them observed the table etiquette and did not communicate verbally throughout a meal. They only smiled at each other across the flowers on the table. Shang Tenen took the last bite of Mamang Star's famous Red Sea softfin fish and set down his knife and fork. Fei Zai also gracefully placed down her cutlery. Thank you, Yan, for providing me with such a delicious dinner. You must have worked very hard, Shang Tenen said sincerely. Fei Zai had just finished eating, her lips slightly curled up, her teeth not showing. You're welcome, Shang. You've helped me, and I'm glad you like my simple meal. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Night View of Mamang Star. Late at night, the Mamang airport was no less bustling than during the day, still bustling with activity. This second most prosperous planet in the Ta-taking system constantly welcomed and received numerous aircraft carriers and space shuttles, and its shuttle bays were managed with great efficiency. Shuttle bus number 135 loaded the passengers of the newly arrived alien passenger and cargo shuttle. A prompt message appeared on each passenger's video projection screen. Please fill in the relevant information based on your specific situation. After the shuttle bus lands, please follow the guidance to choose the correct channel. First-time interstellar passengers may request physical care, and other passengers are advised not to overstay in port. Welcome to Mamang and enjoy the wonderful time ahead. Brother, are you here yet? A man in a window seat stared at the figure that suddenly appeared on the projection screen, paused to ponder his words, and a smile spread across his face. Just arrived, he said, lifting his eyelids to glance inside the train. They were about to clear immigration, and many people were whispering to their families and friends about their safety. The train was buzzing with activity, so he averted his gaze and continued smiling. Your timings are incredibly accurate. I didn't calculate them, but I figured Kakao was a major station. If you were transferring there, your flight would definitely be accurate. That part is accurate, the man said, feeling relieved, and he cast a glance over the immigration registration form. The girl on the projection screen breathed a sigh of relief, but her expression wasn't entirely reassured. She hesitantly asked, Brother, what's Mamang like? I haven't seen it yet. I'll tell you later. I just registered. The man glanced twice at the definition of a first-time star traveler on the form, then scrolled down and selected the column for those without reserved accommodations. The form then offered two more options, requesting a recommendation and contacting a place you already have in mind. No recommendation needed. He paused and selected requesting a recommendation. Soon, a long paragraph appeared on the projection screen. Brother, where are you staying? The girl asked, her brows furrowed in worry. The system is recommending it to me. Don't worry, it's very formal here, and every aspect of life is guided by the official system. I'll let you know once I'm settled in. There's a lot of immigration chores going on right now, so I won't go into detail. Okay, brother, you go ahead, the girl said quickly. Sissy, I'm not home. Stay out of the house, and don't go to my late house shop. I know. You've told me that many times. The girl smiled, the worry between her brows fading slightly, her face brightening, even more lively and beautiful. I'll say it again, so you remember it, the man said seriously. He glanced at his sister, then softly soothed, Sissy, I'll finish my business and be back soon. The girl nodded and logged off. The man carefully read the system notification again. Based on his social contribution points, he was recommended to either of two self-service hostels in the 9th District, Zhendi District, or the 8th District, Zuli District. Once selected, he could move freely within the district during his entry period and could make an appointment to visit the administrative center for any matters. During the Alliance and Mamang annual holidays, you can participate in and observe the various celebrations held in the administrative center. Beyond that, entering other districts may result in random inspections and questioning by Mamang security patrols. Staying overnight in Zuan, Zhisan, and Pingru districts is strictly prohibited without prior notification and proof of necessity. The man pulled up a map of Mamang and scanned each district, thoughtfully comparing the self-service hotels in Zhenti and Zuli districts. Shuang Tannen was halfway to his destination when he received a greeting message from Yu Qiangjin. Hi, Tannen, we've finished making Brother Abu's army. Shuang Tannen couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. He video called the other party and said, Congratulations, Tannen, it's quite late over there, aren't you still awake? Yu Qiangjin was extremely surprised and chuckled. I've been busy since you went back until now. I finally made 50 Abu for the old lady. I wanted to share them with you as soon as I was happy. Abu is a bizarre little pet. The old lady, a customer, had tried to make several prototypes in the workshop where Yu Qiangjin and Shuang Tannen worked. Her requirements kept coming up, wanting the pet to fly up to the sky and go down to the ground. She even refused to design a mythical dinosaur. The two of them revised it many times and finally created Abu for the customer during the busiest time of the final semester. Abu can turn into a bird when it flies up, and a furry cat when it folds its wings. In fact, it is just a combination of a bird and a cat with a unique fur color. The old lady finally said that she liked them and ordered 50 of them at once. Shuang Tannen was going home for the holiday. Fortunately, Yu Qiangjin was planning to stay in Donglan to continue working during the holiday, so the Abu Legion took over for him. The old lady will be very satisfied this time. Shuang Tannen looked at Yu Qiangjin, who was standing in the background with the workshop of the equipment room, and asked with concern, Does the equipment room have a lot of orders these past 2 days? Yes, there are more orders, but it's mainly because there are fewer people working on it. Yu Qiangjin joked, How was your trip home? So excited that you didn't even sleep. How could I be excited? Shuang Tannen wiped his face and said with energy, I'm out there taking orders and I'm just about to rush back. You've only been home for a few days, and you're already so busy without taking a breath. Yu Qiangjin clicked his tongue and shook his head. You're pushing yourself too hard. Are you rushing to finish the work today? No, there's another day tomorrow, Yu Qiangjin sympathetically said. Is it door-to-door service? Rushing back and forth like this is a waste of time, and you can't get enough rest. If you have the conditions, you might as well work all night and then sleep it off after you're done. I don't have the conditions, Shuang Tannen said, glancing out of the car. Below, vast expanses of countryside slumbering in darkness were sparsely dotted with lights. They were so vast and thick that it seemed impossible to move, making it impossible to sense the speed of the car. He was in a hurry to get home, driving at the maximum speed limit. As he spoke, a dense patch of lights appeared on the horizon ahead, like the shimmering surface of water illuminated by stars at night. Upper District 3 was slipping away, and he was about to enter Lower District 6. Some urgent orders don't offer a good price-performance ratio, so forget it, Yu Qiangjin said, speaking to Shuang Tannen as much as to himself. But I can't be too exhausted. When Boss Jin comes back from vacation, I'll definitely tell him I'm never going to make 50 identical Abu again. After all, I'm a designer by training. Shuang Tannen couldn't help but laugh. They chatted for a while longer, and the soft subtitles on the hovercraft's driving system, warning against entering private airspace, automatically disappeared. From a distance, what looked like a shimmering lake surface transformed into a blazing field of fire as he approached, spreading out in a vast, ever-increasing verticality. The high-rise buildings in Lower District 6 resembled giant black blocks with densely packed eye holes, through which light streamed forth. The scenes he'd witnessed since childhood had faded much of Shuang Tianen's tiredness. He expertly switched to manual control, and the car suddenly spun in a wide, upward spiral, climbing to the highest point of the skyway, leaving the tall buildings behind him like a whirlwind. Kainjin, I'm almost home. We'll talk next time. Outside Maming Airport, a man waited at the platform, his lips pursed, his gaze sweeping around. Then, inadvertently, he glanced up, staring blankly for a long moment before finally discerning that the night sky and its stars overhead weren't a backdrop, but a real scene, a scene shielded by a transparent shield. He averted his gaze, standing silently. Ahead, a circle of light suddenly lit up on the platform connecting the airport to Zuli. He stared in wonder, seeing a colorful public hovercar, shaped like a giant, plump bell, quickly ascend. He couldn't help but lower his eyes and observe the ground in front of his feet, and suddenly realized that the words floating parking space on the airport to Zhenta line actually indicated that the car was underneath. On the Ural planet, everything that rises from the ground is rusty and creaks and vibrates within a radius of 4 or 5 miles. He couldn't help but wonder. Sissy, the man made a video call. Brother, the girl said in surprise, have you settled in so quickly? No, I've booked a hotel and am waiting for the bus outside the airport. Outside, the girl's eyes sparkled. She couldn't help but be anxious, curious and concerned. How is Maman? Is it beautiful? Are there many people? Is it crowded? Are you used to it, brother? Very good. The man raised his eyes and glanced at the night sky, then looked at the girl in the projection with a smile. There are stars at night. Very beautiful. Very peaceful. Chapter 63 The Crystal Palace in a Fairy Tale. Shuang Tianen got up early, and the first blush of red appeared on the horizon when he entered the Zhisan district. The white mist in the fields clung to the treetops of the low shrubs, like clouds randomly rolled into thin strips, scattered haphazardly, and too light to fall to the ground, so it floated on the grass and trees. The earth seemed to have not yet awakened, carrying flowers, grass, mountains and lakes, lying quietly below. The autopilot system took him away from the main flight track in the sky, and a red, green and yellow colorful leaf forest appeared below his sight, stretching for dozens of miles in the mist-shrouded fields. Shuang Tianen's eyes flashed slightly, and he glanced back and forth at the front end of the colorful leaf forest. The Yan family manor that was there yesterday was completely gone, replaced by a green grass slope. He exclaimed softly and checked the driving route to confirm that the location of the green grass slope was indeed Miss Yan's home, the end of his journey. The car's alarm suddenly wailed, and the system automatically popped up a bold warning. You are about to enter a private residence. Please park your vehicle immediately for further inspection. Shuang Tianen couldn't help but be even more stunned. Yesterday, when he first visited the residence, he hadn't encountered anything like this, and today was so strange. He landed as instructed. A uniformed figure appeared on the projection screen. Sitting behind a desk, he scanned Shuang Tianen's face with a sharp gaze and spoke. This is the Zhisan squadron of the Maman Public Security Patrol. Please state your name. Shuang Tianen, what's your destination? The Yan residence at number 2 King Shuli, Shuang Tianen added. Sir, I've accepted a door-to-door service assignment from the Yan residence and have already reported the order number to the Freedom Union. I saw that, the patrol officer replied expressionlessly, continuing, Mr. Shuang, you need the personal consent of the owner of number 2 King Shuli before entering their private residence. Please wait until I notify you to let you in. The patrol officer on the projection screen suddenly vanished, and Shuang Tianen leaned back in his chair helplessly. He wanted to communicate with Feiyu, but then he realized the patrol officer was probably trying to contact her, so he decided to wait. Outside the car, a deep, tree-lined path snaked forward, the treetops connecting like an archway. Sunlight streamed through the gaps between the leaves, and pale golden beams of light scattered through the archways, spilling onto the thin layer of fallen leaves. The morning mist seemed to dance in the beams of light, as enchanting as a beautiful fairy tale scene. Shuang Tianen sat in the car, watching, and happened to catch a few yellow leaves gently drifting down from the treetops. All was silent, yet he seemed to feel the gentle breeze rustling through the trees. He couldn't help but admire the private SkyTrain signposts renovated outside the Yan family's residence. From the air, it looked like a colorful embroidered ribbon dropped by an ancient person. It was already magnificent, and now, seen from the ground, It looked even more like a hidden fairyland, breathtakingly beautiful. Feiyu was still lying in bed. Last night, she tried out the newly upgraded home design feature of the housekeeping robot. On a whim, she couldn't stop. She stayed up all night to pick out the perfect design for the study she'd been dreaming of. Taking advantage of the excitement, she ordered all the materials and went to bed a little later. When the access control system woke her, she thought it was Shuang Tannen. Ms. Yan Feiyu, this is the hissing squad of the Moming Security Patrol. Your house is currently under renovation and defense. Mr. Shuang Tannen, a permanent resident of Zuli District, is driving near your house. Do you allow him to enter? Feiyu took a moment to digest the information and quickly said, yes. After the call ended, she sat cross-legged on the bed, tilting her head to think. As the head of the Yan family, Feiyu gradually began to cultivate her awareness of managing the household in all aspects. She set herself an 8-character guideline: careful, cautious, low-key, and pragmatic. Dad said that it doesn't matter if you can't manage a household, you'll get the hang of it with practice. Feiyu now felt like she had some housekeeping skills. The recent Q&A session quickly reminded her of the fees for the public maintenance funds for housing and environmental safety. Honestly, 2 days ago, when reviewing her family's annual income and expenditure statement from her accountant, she'd been skeptical about the amount, feeling it was always a bit too high. Now, she finally saw the value for money. Last night, she'd been thinking about the current state of the family's robotics system, especially the master robot and its communication channels, which had yet to be rebuilt. After Shuang Tannen left, she'd be left alone to guard such a large house, so she switched the access control to renovation defense mode to feel more at ease. Who would have thought that this would lead to the security patrol keeping a close eye on her house, even intercepting Shuang Tannen when he visited? From now on, when reviewing financial reports, she'll never again criticize the public maintenance funds for housing and environmental safety. Don't spend money recklessly, spend it where it counts. This is the cut. Shuang Tannen hadn't gotten enough sleep the previous night, and he closed his eyes slightly, resting his mind as he gazed at the tranquil, colorful forest. A moment later, a notification dinged onto the projection screen. You can continue driving. He opened his eyes, shook his head, and restarted the car, launching into the air. Suddenly, his vision opened up. The grassy slope ahead had vanished, revealing the pavilions and towers of the Yan family. He understood then that the grassy slope was likely a protective shield for the Feiyu family's entire residence, its exterior painted in a false color scheme, intentionally blending in with the surrounding nature. Feiyu was still in the main building's living room to greet Shuang Tannen. Good morning, classmate Shuang. She glanced at Shuang Tannen, who was wearing a work suit that was similar in style and color to the one he wore yesterday. She considerately pretended not to notice, not even moving her eyebrows as she smiled. I haven't had breakfast yet. Have you? Why don't we have breakfast together? Thank you, I've already eaten, Shuang Tannen said politely. Classmate Yan, do you have any new requirements for the robot? If not, I'll go to the robot restroom to start work. No, then you go ahead, Feiyu said. I may be busy with a decoration today. I asked you to modify the robot last night to design the study. It's very useful. Thank you, you're welcome, Shuang Tannen smiled. I'm relieved that it works well. Lunch is still a nutritious meal, Feiyu added. Dinner still starts at 6 o'clock. Shuang Tannen paused and said apologetically, Classmate Yan, thank you for your hospitality, but after I finish today, I don't think I'll bother you anymore. Feiyu glanced at him silently. A lady never interrupts others if she thinks you haven't finished speaking. The assignment stated that her employer would provide 3 meals a day, so it was understandable that workers could eat breakfast at home, but not even having dinner after work required a proper explanation. I have a new order tomorrow, so I'll go home early after today so I can make some preparations, Shuang Tannen explained. Feiyu paused for a moment and said, okay. The day went very smoothly for both of them. As the sunset glow once again illuminated the Yan family's garden, Shuang Tannen said goodbye to Feiyu. Student Yan, if you have any problems with these robots, feel free to video chat with me. My warranty period is 1 year, Shuang Tannen said with a smile. If there are any problems after that year, you can still come to me. We're all in the academy, so communication should be convenient. Thank you, student Shuang. I'll come to you if I have any questions. Feiyu smiled, standing on the stone steps of the main building. I hope not, Shuang Tannen nodded and prepared to leave. Mr. Shuang, Thank you for your hard work these past 2 days. Since you don't have time to stay for dinner, I've prepared a lunchbox. Please take it home. The taste may be slightly off. Xiang Tannen gave Feiyu a newly upgraded butler robot. Its demeanor was more gentlemanly, its timing impeccable. Xiang Tannen was stunned by Feiyu's words. Then, silently, it stood beside him, neither humble nor overbearing, yet extremely attentive, holding out a large, exquisite, square, double-layered carved wooden lunchbox. Mr. Yan, no thanks, Xiang Tannen said quickly. It's my duty, Feiyu said matter-of-factly, raising her chin slightly and instructing the robot, take the lunchbox to Mr. Shuang's car. Xiang Tannen couldn't refuse, so he thanked her. He opened the car door and looked back. Feiyu was still standing upright on the stone steps. Behind him, the vast, milky white building, lit up at night like a crystal palace, the orange twilight of tat-taking shone on the tall gateposts. Chapter 64. The deceased uses his life as evidence. As soon as Feiyu's study was decorated, Lawyer Qin came to visit urgently, but this time he didn't talk about the annual tax return. He currently lives in Hendi district. Apart from submitting a request for property division to the city hall, he hasn't taken any other action. Feiyu never thought that someone would want to claim kinship and share her property. Ms. Yan, does your family have any relatives on the Ural planet? The Ural planet? Feiyu frowned and recalled the Alliance geography class. The planet didn't even count for the test points. It seemed to be a small station on the branch line of the Liaoshan Channel, with poor resources and nothing to be proud of. No, Feiyu shook her head and answered with certainty. Her family has been small for generations. If there were still relatives to visit, how could her father not tell her? Before her father died, he sorted out the genealogy of the farmhand's family for her. How could he not tell her about his own family? The applicant's name is Yan Qingjun, and he has a twin sister named Yan Qingxi. They are native residents of the Ural planet. His mother passed away 3 years ago. He is unmarried and is a freelance shop owner registered with the Ural Leisure Industry Union. Liao Erkin. Lawyer Qin looked at Feiyu and paused. The name filled in the father column is Yan Yaoyu. Feiyu was stunned, and it took her a while to react. My uncle? How is that possible? My uncle passed away when I was very young. I don't even remember if I have met him. Judging from their ages, it is not impossible. Lawyer Qin analyzed. When Yan Qingjun filed a request for division of property, he provided his and his sister's birth documents in the Ural. Mr. Yan Yaoyu died a year after they were born. It makes sense purely in terms of the time chain. Then why did my uncle never mention their existence to the family? Feiyu asked, puzzled. The information prepared by Yan Qingjun is very comprehensive. Regarding this issue, he issued a supplementary statement to the city hall, which contains the original statement and handwritten signature of the late Ms. Liao Erkin. Feiyu couldn't help but exchange a glance with Lawyer Qin. Her face remained calm, and she continued to listen with a frown. According to Ms. Liao Erkin, Mr. Yan Yaoyu was traveling to the Ural planet and stayed at her inn, where they met and fell in love. Mr. Yan then left the Urals, agreeing to return after completing his travel plans to arrange their wedding. After Mr. Yan's departure, Liao Erkin unexpectedly discovered she was pregnant, but she and Mr. Yan could no longer communicate, forcing her to give birth alone, leaving no one to sign the child's paternity. Believing Mr. Yan didn't want to fulfill his promise to marry her, she named the twins Liao Erdabu and Liao Erlisi, bravely raising them alone. However, she could never let go of Mr. Yan. 3 years ago, when Liao Erkin passed away due to health reasons, she revealed the truth about their past lives to her children, instructed them to take their father's surname, and hoped they would return to the Yan family. Feiyu kept a straight face as she listened to her late uncle's love story. Her niece was speechless for a moment. Feiyu's great-uncle, Yan Yaoyu, was so obscure in Feiyu's memory that he barely existed beyond a name on the family tree. Perhaps his untimely death had deeply grieved both her grandfather and her father, who rarely mentioned him while they were alive. It was said that he preferred adventure to inheriting the family business, and that the accident occurred during an expedition to a desolate planet. Why didn't they come looking for him after their mother passed away 3 years ago? Feiyu wondered. That? Yan Qingjun didn't explain. Lawyer Qin said gravely. Ms. Yan, I'd like to explain to you the credibility of Ms. Liao Erkin's statement from a legal perspective. Based on the Alliance's deep respect for humanity, while there's no explicit legal provision, in practice, the City Hall's adjudication body assumes that the deceased's testimonies are 100% credible. We call this the deceased's written testimony. Lawyer Qin's brows were filled with solemnity, and he said in a deep voice, "Unless there's conclusive evidence that their words are inaccurate, they will be rejected." Feiyu remained silent. If the documentary evidence left by the deceased is false, then the person who submitted such documentary evidence will have his or her own documentary evidence not accepted after his or her death. Although few people pay attention to this, no one can predict what will happen in the future. If such a situation really occurs, everyone will be very cautious. When the City Hall received Ms. Liao Qin's statement before her death, it explained the pros and cons to Yan Qingjin in accordance with a procedure and obtained his signature to confirm the submission. In other words, the City Hall currently accepts Ms. Liao Qin's explanation of the identity of her children, so, the City Hall already considers them to be my cousins. Feiyu thought about the relationship in her mind. Cousins. They are half a year younger than you. Lawyer Qin shook his head and said, "Of course the City Hall will not make such a ruling. What I mean is that the documents and information provided by Yan Qingjin are strong enough, and he has taken the initiative to apply for family blood relationship identification, and expressed his unconditional cooperation with all necessary investigations and evidence collection. If nothing unexpected happens, his application for division of property will be formally accepted, and we will receive a notice soon. The City Hall should recommend that we and Yan Qingjin conduct family blood relationship identification, then what? We can refuse blood relationship recognition twice. According to Mamang law, when non-Mamang residents request a Mamang City Hall to adjudicate a dispute against Mamang residents within the Mamang administrative area, the Mamang residents have the right to refuse to respond twice. However, Lawyer Qin spoke slowly, as if letting Feiyu digest the word slowly. The alliance law stipulates that as long as the applicant can convince all those claiming their rights to use all their social contribution points as collateral, and after losing the case, unconditionally accept the arbitrary deployment of the alliance's public utilities, and the rest of their life's labor will not be counted as social contribution points, the applicant can request to force the other party to respond to the lawsuit. Feiyu listened quietly. As far as I know, Yan Qingjin voluntarily checked a box in his application materials that states that if we refuse to respond to the lawsuit this time, his application materials will automatically be placed on the next waiting list, and he will file a second application. In other words, this Mr. Yan from the Ural region has, from now on, shown an attitude of wanting to see the process through to the end. Whether I like it or not, a blood relationship test will definitely be done, Feiyu asked. I do think so, Lawyer Qin affirmed. I don't quite understand the part about his social contribution points and the mandatory response. In layman's terms, after we have twice rejected the blood relationship test, as long as Yan Qingjin and his sister are willing to lose their existing social contribution points and reset their lives to zero if they lose the case, and to bear the risk of completely losing their self-esteem and handing over their personal freedom to the alliance's public institutions, they can still ask the City Hall to force us to conduct a blood relationship test. Is that a high price to pay? Chapter 65 Birthright. It's huge. Social contribution points can be few, but they cannot be none. Without social contribution points, all applications for travel, study, employment, and social welfare will be absolutely restricted, which is equivalent to being imprisoned in the same place. Moreover, if they lose the case, they cannot regain social contribution points through any social labor. It's like working for nothing all their lives without pay. Some people call them worker ants, and they are treated almost the same as indefinite prisoners. The only difference is that they don't need additional prison management. Lawyer Qin looked directly at Feiyu. So the alliance's response guidelines stipulate that once someone is willing to file a complaint at all costs after the normal process, someone must listen to him, and the party being complained against must give him full respect in responding to the complaint. Lawyer Qin paused and asked, Ms. Yan, do you think it is possible that Yan Qingjin and his sister share family blood with you? Feiyu said after a long while, I don't know them at all. In that case, Lawyer Qin frowned. I must explain the possible consequences to you clearly. There are only two results in blood relationship determination, yes or no. If it's no, everything will remain the same on our side. Of course, you can sue the other party afterwards and ask them to compensate you for the physical and mental damages you have suffered. Lawyer Qin made a little joke, but it did not adjust the cheerful atmosphere. Feiyu bowed slightly and listened with a calm face. He quickly said solemnly, if the result is yes, Ms. Yan, I'm afraid the inheritance you have now will need to be distributed proportionally. Proportionally, yes, According to the common rules, if your father and your uncle's brothers divided a property at that time, you can now take your father's share, which is equivalent to half. But unfortunately, your parents did not register the property division notice at the city hall, and your grandfather did not leave any will for the distribution of property. Perhaps because your uncle passed away at that time, your family automatically believed that your father was the only heir, so no written confirmation was made. This is quite regrettable, lawyer Qin sighed lightly. So, now the Yan family's property is still equivalent to family property. You, and the Yan brothers and sisters after the blood relationship is confirmed, have equal inheritance rights. The common sharing ratio is 1 share for each of the 3 people, but they are, Feiyu said in disbelief, their mothers have not formed a legal marriage with my uncle. This does not affect their innate rights. Lawyer Qin shook his head. Unless your uncle explicitly eliminated the brothers and sisters' inheritance rights during his lifetime, according to their story, my uncle probably doesn't even know them. So, what we learned is that your uncle has not restricted the inheritance shares of his illegitimate children, so they have the same inheritance status as you. Simply put, you get about 1/3, probably. There is another situation to consider. Of course, Yan Qingjin has not made any special requests for the division of the property. We will first assume that he agrees to the commonly used method of dividing the property according to population. But in fact, once his bloodline is confirmed, as the only surviving eldest son and grandson of the Yan family, he can get a little more. For example, if he indicates that he will assume more family obligations, perhaps he can take half, and the remaining half can be divided equally between his sister and you. That is, you get 1/4. Lawyer Qin waved his hand. You must know that legal principles are nothing more than secular human feelings. Sometimes, in the actual distribution of inheritance rights, while ensuring basic fairness, some specific circumstances will be taken into consideration. Specific circumstances? Feiyu's voice rose when she heard this. The specific situation is that after my uncle passed away, about 20 years ago, my father took on the responsibility of taking care of my grandfather and managing the family business. Her face flushed slightly, feeling that those 2 people who appeared out of nowhere were going to bully her long-deceased father. Did her father work so hard as a housekeeper for those 2 people whose true identity was unknown? Ms. Yan, I understand your feelings very well. What you mentioned is also an important distribution factor that we will ask the City Hall to consider. So, I just want you to be mentally prepared for the 1/4 division, but I will never let it become a reality. You should at least get 1/3. Which is the more ideal situation. 1/3, more ideal. Feiyu almost laughed. The study was silent for a moment. Yes, for now, yes, lawyer Qin nodded. Ms. Yan, perhaps you could arrange a meeting with Yan Qingjin to determine his true identity and intentions, lawyer Qin pondered. If possible, mediate privately at the lowest possible cost. Do you mean to pay him a fee privately and have him return to the Ural Mountains? Feiyu asked bluntly. Lawyer Qin, do you think he'd agree? Everything is based on his confidence in his bloodline. If he's confident enough, any normal person would choose the City Hall's formal ruling, lawyer Qin said bluntly. If he's not confident enough, why should I pay a fee to an unknown person? Feiyu said sternly. Just because he filed an unfounded petition against me for the division of my estate, then, Ms. Yan, what do you mean? I need to think about it. Lawyer Qin, I'd like to know about Ms. Liaokin's life. Do you have any ideas? City Hall was always prone to a slightly slow bureaucracy, and for the 10 days after Lawyer Qin's visit, nothing happened. Feiyu still followed her original holiday plan, supervising the robots cleaning to welcome the new year, responding to the annual fundraising call and making routine donations to the Maming Welfare Institution. She did what she had to do, and when she had some free time, she would go sit on the swing in the back garden. But she was thinking about this matter from time to time, and she didn't feel the relaxation she should have felt during the holiday. Lawyer Qin was very responsible and had already started to investigate the Liao family on the distant Ural planet through the Alliance Lawyers Association. And according to the idea of knowing yourself and knowing your enemy, you can win 100 battles. He used his connections to observe Yan Qingjin's movements and reported to Feiyu every few days. He took the public hovercraft to drive a circle around the Zhanti district. He went to the City Hall today to check the progress of the property division application. Go to the City Hall? Go there by yourself. Feiyu was surprised. Wouldn't the City Hall give him timely feedback on any progress in the process? Perhaps he thought a personal visit to City Hall would get him more feedback, Lawyer Qin reasoned. This suggests he's eager for results and can't afford to wait in Mamen for long. 3 days before the Mamen Lunar New Year, the Yan residents at No. 2 Kingshuli, Zisan District, received an official notice from City Hall, officially accepting Yan Qingzhen's application for bloodline verification and property division. Yan Qingzhen generously disclosed his personal information to the Yan residents on the application form. Feiyu couldn't quite describe her feelings about this sudden appearance of a suspected relative. She had been following the established procedures for the past few days. She knew Lawyer Qin was keeping an eye on Yan Qingzhen, but she hadn't asked to see his video footage. So this was Feiyu's first glimpse of Yan Qingzhen. He had narrow, long eyes, not the large, double-lidded ones typical of her family. His mouth was pursed, and his lips were particularly thin, suggesting a deep sense of bitterness and resentment. Feiyu pursed her lips and observed herself. Her lips were neither thick nor thin, but when they were tightly closed and silent, her expression was serious and solemn. The two feelings were completely different. She also looked through the historical images of her family for 3 generations and found a record of her uncle, her father and his brother helping the old man move stones when they were young. Feiyu stared at this uncle Yan Yaoyu, whom she had never met before. At that time, her uncle was a few years younger than she is now. When he smiled, he had a row of white teeth and a row of fine beads of sweat on his forehead. He was obviously a sunny and cheerful boy next door, but he didn't look like someone who would do such a thing as infidelity. In the middle of the night, she looked at her grandfather, uncle and father, and she could always easily find similarities here and there, making it clear that they must be related. But, Yan Qingzhen, Feiyu compared his facial features inch by inch, and felt that she could not find any obvious similarities between him and her grandfather and the other 3. On the eve of the Mamen New Year, Attorney Qin responded to the City Hall's notice, signing a refusal to respond to the lawsuit in the Yan residence attorney column. His reasoning was that Mr. Yan Yaoyu died young, unmarried, and childless. The remaining Yan family members could not bear to investigate their deceased relatives and did not approve of any actions that might negatively impact the late Mr. Yan Yaoyu's reputation. They also had no obligation to provide family blood samples or other highly private information to Mr. Liaodabu or other strangers seeking to find relatives or divide up the property. Feiyu decided that if she had to be involved in Liaodabu's troubles, she would respond to the lawsuit with the utmost respect, waiting for him to express his strongest desire to speak. Chapter 66 Compulsory Response. During this holiday, the New Year's Day of the Madhun calendar and the Alliance calendar differed by just 8 days. The Madhun calendar follows the cycle of Madhun around Ta-taking, while the Alliance calendar is calculated using an extremely complex formula. Historical records indicate that in the early days of the Alliance, generations of arguing over a unified calendar saw each planet vying to give its ruling planet a higher weight in the formula. This proved to be an extremely complex undertaking, so complex that simply preparing the arguments required more than a comprehensive understanding of dialectical texts. Furthermore, during this process, new planets were discovered, only to discover that their impact factors didn't fit into the established formula, leading to further arguments. The widespread failure rates in Alliance history classes attest to the Alliance's glorious history of interstellar exploration, as well as the chaotic history of the Alliance's shabby chronology committee, which held frequent hearings and research sessions. It constantly saw change, but couldn't figure out how to achieve it in a way that satisfied everyone. Over time, everyone became accustomed to using 2 different calendars. For interstellar business, the Alliance calendar should be used for communication. If confined to one's own small island, it's more convenient to use one's own planet's indigenous calendar for daily life. Rumor has it that the Alliance Chronology Committee is at loggerheads again, wanting to rename the Alliance calendar to the Star Calendar, vigorously promoting its use and gradually weakening the use of the indigenous calendars of each planet. Who knows how long this dispute will last? These matters are not the business of ordinary people. The Mamen people naturally value the Mamen New Year, but they also celebrate the Alliance New Year. This rare opportunity for 2 holidays to coincide, resulting in an extra long holiday, is a rare occasion, and everyone is delighted. The Mamen Administrative Center has arranged a variety of celebrations, both large and small, and the program has long been distributed to everyone on Mamen. On this final working day of the global New Year's celebrations, Lawyer Qin had just signed the Property Division investigation notice at City Hall that afternoon, had a video call with Feiyu, and exchanged Happy New Year's. At dusk, he arrived at the Yan residence in person. Ms. Yan, I apologize for coming here at this time, but the situation is urgent. I must discuss this with you face to face before my annual leave begins. Lawyer Qin spoke seriously, genuinely dedicated. Your annual leave is too long. I'm afraid that discussing this afterward will delay your response. Feiyu instructed Ada to brew a pot of top-quality scented tea and bring it into the study. Ms. Yan Qingjin has submitted a letter of intent to compel an appeal to the City Hall. Feiyu raised an eyebrow. Skip the second application. Lawyer Qin shook his head. His property division application automatically proceeded to a second application after we refused to respond. Maman residents have the inalienable right to refuse to respond twice to a lawsuit filed by a non-Maman resident within the Maman administrative district. However, a non-Maman resident may, during the processing of the second application, express a desire to compel a Maman resident to respond. In this case, the second application process can be streamlined, so, he wants to simplify the process. Feiyu, with a calm and composed demeanor, spoke calmly, without any hint of anger. Ms. Yan, he has obviously studied Maman's response clauses and has made all preparations in advance. This afternoon, I refused to respond to the lawsuit based on the final reply deadline on the served documents, but just an hour later, before the City Hall closed, Yan Qingjin rushed to the City Hall and submitted a letter of intent to force us to respond. Ms. Yan, you must know that the letter of intent is not just a document. It must include the personal signatures of all rights claimants, that is, he and his sister, who are willing to use social contribution points as collateral, as well as the official recognition of the Ural Planet Administrative District, that is, and his sister's social activities in recent years are healthy and normal, and statements from more than 3 acquaintances with fixed residences. He has them all, Lawyer Qin said in a deep voice. Feiyu could only discern one meaning from this long passage of technical jargon. Yan Qingjin, whose real name was Liao, had been hiding in the corners of the Ural Mountains, secretly plotting her family's fortune while she was at the Donglan Research Institute, worrying about her final grades. He had meticulously planned out the procedures, and was impatient. She hated such scheming people. So, do we have to prepare for the lawsuit now? Feiyu's voice was unrecognizable. That's true. The secondary application process for property division has been simplified. I have received repeated notifications from the City Hall. Due to the annual leave, the final reply deadline will be postponed to within 2 days after the end of the annual leave. If we still choose to refuse to respond, the compulsory response process will be initiated. Feiyu was silent for a long time before saying, Lawyer Qin, don't you doubt the parent-child relationship between Mr. Yan Qingjin and my uncle. I don't make any assumptions about the other party's situation. I only protect the rights and interests of my client. However, Lawyer Qin said, once someone demands that the other party be forced to respond at a huge cost, everyone's impression is that the basis of his claim may be true and should be fully taken seriously. Feiyu frowned and said nothing. Ms. Yan, you also sensed Yan Qingjin's firm belief in his own identity from his series of actions, right? What I'm more worried about is that once the worst happens and the family bloodline of Yan Qingjin and his sister is confirmed, the arbitrators at the City Hall will clearly feel his firm belief that is not afraid of questioning. If he adds some descriptions of their interdependent life, it will easily arouse sympathy and give him some favorable tendencies when deciding the distribution ratio. You have to know that the general principle of fairness will not change, but in actual situations, the points may fluctuate slightly with the statements. Feiyu lowered her eyes, thought for a moment, and then asked, how is the investigation in Ural? Time is too tight, and we have only some superficial information for the time being. Ms. Liaokin did run a hotel and raised a pair of children alone. She died of illness 3 years ago, which is basically the same as what Yan Qingjin said in the application for division of property. Does Ms. Liaokin have any other relatives? No, her father was a worker at the Ural garbage collection station and died when she was 15. She opened a hostel by herself. Feiyu nodded, thoughtfully asking, is it big? Probably not. The registration says it's micro-exempt from rating, and there have been several records of unpaid management fees, exempt from rating. It means it's not eligible for rating and doesn't participate in the rating, not even the lowest rated. No, Feiyu had never stayed in a hostel that was even the lowest rated. She frowned, unable to imagine her uncle choosing such an unrated place when he went out. Is her hostel special? Lawyer Qin glanced at Feiyu. I'm not sure about that, he continued. The records of the Ural Leisure Industry Union show that the hostel was not originally registered to her. It was not transferred to her name until 3 years after the twins were born. After her death, it was registered to Yan Qingjun. Feiyu frowned. I remember she said that my uncle stayed at her hostel and that's how they met. But she only opened the hostel after her children were born. Isn't that a clear slander? Chapter 67 The Power of Storytelling. Her inn was transferred, and the records show that she was a helper in the inn before, so the original owner gave priority to transferring it to her. In other words, my uncle stayed in that inn when she was still a helper and got to know her. Feiyu pondered and shook her head for a while. According to her, my uncle promised to marry her, then why didn't my uncle take her with him when he left Ural, but continued to let her work alone as a helper? If my uncle had made arrangements for her temporary stay in Ural, it would make sense, but obviously not, otherwise she would not have been able to take over an inn 3 years after the birth of her child. She could have opened one herself a long time ago. Feiyu took a breath and said heavily, we, the Yan family, will never sit idly by like this to the people we care about. Although I haven't met my uncle, I believe he is the same. Besides, the eldest son of the Yan family is not without the financial resources to arrange his fiancé's life. This plot doesn't make sense. Lawyer Qin paused and considered his words. It is said that the small inn on the Ural planet has a rather mixed crowd. To stimulate business, the owner would invite some beautiful people to perform in the inn under the guise of helpers. Feiyu was stunned for a moment, then suddenly raised her eyebrows. Liao Qin is a helper of this nature. Lawyer Qin waved his hand. More than 20 years have passed, and these details have not been investigated. Besides, Ms. Liao Qin has passed away. Any questioning of the deceased may make the commentator seem too harsh. Without a conflict of interest, who would say anything? But, at least, the statement she left behind is not entirely true. Ms. Yan, we have no evidence, because whether they are in love or have a marriage commitment are only known by the parties involved, and outsiders cannot tell. Even if Ms. Liao Qin's statement is questionable on this point, she did not use love or marriage commitment to obtain your family's assets. She just said that she and Mr. Yan Yaoyu had a child. Liao Qin herself may not be rigorous, but if you start from her reputation, I am afraid that compared with a result of family blood relationship recognition, the effect will be very small. Lawyer Qin looked at Feiyu and emphasized, as long as the identities of Yan Qingjun and his sister are confirmed, they are eligible to participate in the distribution with you. In the end, the story you find may not be as good as the story they told themselves, but they are still real people in the story. Everyone has a share. This is the general principle of fairness. Feiyu noticed that Lawyer Qin had mentioned the general principle of fairness twice. Is the general principle of fairness distribution based on headcount? Yes, distribution based on headcount means everyone gets a share, and this is unshakable. So, Ms. Yan, once the Yan Qingjun siblings are included in the division list, you've already lost the overall situation. Lawyer Qin glanced at Feiyu and slowly asked, Ms. Yan, are you okay with your share fluctuating between 1/3 and 3/10? Feiyu was silent for less than a second, then raised her chin and said clearly, of course not. Lawyer Qin nodded. I understand. So, we can't simply rely on our storytelling skills to impress the arbitrators and gain a small advantage in points. Ms. Yan, I suggest you seriously consider the general direction of the distribution. After the meeting, Feiyu, knowing the ways of the world, invited Lawyer Qin to dinner. Ms. Yan, you're welcome. My family is waiting for me to come home for dinner today, Lawyer Qin said with a smile. We'll meet again after the new year. Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Feiyu sat alone at the main table in the long dining room, silently eating the Maman New Year's Eve dinner. On her left, the butler led a line of defense robots, and on her right, Ada led another line of housekeeping robots. She didn't need such a grand ceremony in the past, but today was different. She wanted some festive atmosphere. After dinner, Feiyu went to the study and thought for half the night. The next day, at the beginning of the new year, she walked around her house with a serious face, stopping to look at every blade of grass and every tree, reluctant to leave as she walked. Another day, she got up early, put on some light makeup, asked Ada to prepare a gift box for her, and drove out in a hovercar. The lower 6th district was really crowded. 12 buildings were lined up one after another, and she looked down from the air and suddenly felt claustrophobia. Feiyu didn't know the way, so she had to switch to automatic driving, but she saw the car taking her across the SkyTrain. going up and down, which made her dizzy. In a public parking lot, she sat quietly for a long time and finally made a video call. "Hello," she curled the corners of her lips. "Classmate Yan, Happy New Year." On the projection screen, Xiong Tian'an was slightly surprised, but he smiled politely. His eyes met Feiyu's particularly friendly smile. After a slight pause, he asked, "Is there something wrong with the robot I upgraded for your home?" "There's nothing wrong with the robot, it works very well." After the words fell, Feiyu hesitated for a moment, raised her eyebrows, and continued to smile. "It's New Year's Day these days. I heard there are a lot of celebrations outside, so I came out for a walk." She glanced at Xiong Tian'an and continued, "I just happened to walk downstairs to your house and brought you a little gift. Are you home?" Even Xiong Tian'an was calm and composed, but at this moment he was so surprised that his jaw almost dropped. He half opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. "I'll bring it up to you, classmate Yan. You don't have to be so polite." Xiong Tian'an was stunned again, and stammered, You're downstairs? I'll come down, okay, see you at the door on the ground floor." Feiyu cut off the video call, and for some reason, he sighed deeply. But she didn't have time to deal with all that. She quickly tidied her hair, adjusted the hem of her skirt, picked up the big gift box and got out of the car. Xiong Tian'an hurried downstairs and looked around, but there was no one. Puzzled, she looked again and saw a girl in a pink skirt about 40 or 50 meters away, holding a golden square box, with her neck tilted high, looking at the building next door. Feiyu frowned, finally saw the building sign clearly, turned around and walked forward. In this area, the residential buildings are so dense that the signs on the street view map are squeezed together, making it very difficult to recognize. "Student Yan," she raised her eyes and saw Xiong Tian'an coming towards her. He was wearing a simple white shirt and a dark blue vest. He was dressed simply, but he had an upright figure, a clean face, and a gentle temperament. "Student Xiong," Feiyu smiled. How did you get here?" "I drove. The parking garage downstairs from your building was full, so I parked in a public parking lot nearby. I'm not familiar with the way here, so I'm sorry to have kept you waiting." "I didn't wait long." Xiong Tian'an glanced at the big box, which was another exquisitely carved wooden box, and said hurriedly, "Is it heavy?" "Let me get it, it's for you." Feiyu raised the corner of her mouth. "Happy New Year. Inside are some snacks I made myself." To be honest, Xiong Tian'an's heart was beating fast. Miss Yan was really not the kind of person who would do good things for no reason. He suppressed his confusion, thanked her, and invited, "Come upstairs and sit down." "Okay," Feiyu nodded. Chapter 68 Neighborhood Mutual Aid Program. "Please come in, the place is a bit small." Xiong Tian'an opened the door. Feiyu smiled but said nothing. The elevator just arrived at this floor, and there was a long corridor outside with doors on both sides. It was obvious that many families lived there. She stepped in, and her eyes subconsciously looked around the room. It looked like a small living room, with simple furnishings and was kept very clean, which slightly alleviated the feeling of being cramped. "Xiaoan, why are you running downstairs?" An old lady in a floral half-coat came out of the room next door. Feiyu was startled, and silently repeated the name Xiaoan in her heart. She was secretly surprised that Xiong Tian'an was still called by his nickname. "This is Grandma Li." Xiong Tian'an looked a little embarrassed, turned to the old lady and introduced, "Grandma Li, this is my classmate, his surname is Yan. Happy New Year, Grandma Li." Feiyu folded her hands, bowed respectfully, raised her eyes to the old lady and pursed her lips. Her greeting was deliberately soft, and this made her sound a little girlish. Xiong Tian'an, holding a large gift box beside her, could not help but glance at her. The old lady had been staring at Feiyu for a long time, and when she heard the words, her wrinkles narrowed with a smile. She enthusiastically brought out a stool. Okay, Miss Yan, Happy New Year to you too. It's rare for Xiaoan to have a female classmate come to play. Miss Yan, please sit down." "Thank you, Grandma Li." "Xiaoan, make some honey water for Miss Yan." The old lady was busy directing Xiong Tian'an again. Xiong Tian'an said looked at the excited Grandma Li, and then looked at the elegant Feiyu sitting upright, suppressed his doubts, and went to the kitchen. "Miss Yan, are you and Xiaoan classmates now, or in the early years?" The old lady sat down next to Feiyu, and asked curiously. "We are all from the Donglan Research Institute." "Oh, great. Miss Yan, you are also from Armaman?" "What a coincidence, Grandma Li." "Classmate Yan, Have a glass of honey water. Shang Tannen brought 2 cups over and said to Feiyu with a little apology, this is the only one we have. Try it. Feiyu's eyes fell to the rim of the cup. The cup was very ordinary, porcelain white, and most of it was reddish-brown liquid. It was impossible to tell what kind of plant juice was mixed with it. Her expression did not change. She picked it up and took a sip. She immediately tasted that this drink could not be a natural and pure fresh plant juice. It's very sweet. She looked up and smiled. Grandma Li was very happy and greeted, Miss Yan, drink more. This is what Xiaowen bought. He said he wanted to drink something sweet in the new year. Feiyu's eyes swept over Shang Tannen, and in the old lady's expectant eyes, she took another sip and smiled gently at the old lady. Miss Yan, did you come here far? You must be tired on the way. Grandma Li, you should drink some honey water too, Shang Tannen interrupted. Oh, the old lady hurriedly stood up as if she remembered something. Xiaowen, you talk to Miss Yan, I have something to do in the kitchen. Feiyu watched the old lady turn into a small door, then looked up at Shang Tannen. She couldn't guess who this Grandma Li was. She maintained an elegant smile and organized her words in her mind. My home is simple, and I have nothing to treat you. Shang Tannen dragged a chair over and sat down opposite Feiyu. Very good. Feiyu replied, and after a pause, she was about to start a small talk when she saw the old lady's happy face turn into a smile again. Xiaowen, I remembered that I should go to Xiao Qiang and Xiao Hua's house to tell them to go and see the lanterns on their own. Oh, okay, Miss Yan, please sit down. I'll go to the next door to talk about something, the old lady said cheerfully, and gave Feiyu and Shang Tannen a meaningful look twice before reluctantly opening the door and leaving. Shang Tannen knew what Grandma Li was thinking, and couldn't help but feel embarrassed and helpless. Have you made an appointment to go watch the lanterns with someone else? Feiyu glanced at Shang Tannen. Sorry, I'm so abrupt, I don't have anything to do. I'm just bored at home, and my neighbor asked me to go out and watch the fun. Shang Tannen put on a straight face and chatted, there are a lot of celebrations in the administrative district these days. Classmate Yan, have you gone to see them? No. Feiyu shook her head and inquired, are all the other people in your family out? I live with Grandma Li. Shang Tannen said, my parents are both dead. Feiyu couldn't help but open her eyes wide, and it took her a while to realize that she had lost her composure. She hurriedly said, I'm sorry, but she still couldn't help it. Then Grandma Li is you, no mistake, one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, take a look. Grandma Li is my neighbor. When my parents passed away, I was not old enough to apply for housing on my own. Grandma Li used to live alone, and she kindly offered to take care of me, so we moved in together and have lived together ever since. Feiyu was stunned when she heard this. She never thought that Shang Tannen had a similar life experience to her. She felt a little more familiar in her heart. She turned her eyes slightly, and basically saw the layout of this small house. Her brows were very gentle, and she asked, are you used to living like this? I mean, she is a neighbor after all, I'm used to it. Grandma Li is a very good person. Shang Tannen smiled gently, guessing that Miss Yan might have never heard of the Neighborhood Mutual Aid Plan in the housing management of the lower 6th district. Here, if the children are too young or the elderly are too old and it is not suitable for them to live alone, as long as there are close neighbors or relatives willing to live together, they don't have to go to welfare institutions. The people who help take care of them will also get more social contribution points accordingly, and the house area can also be increased. So I am not the only one who lives with neighbors. We all get along very well. After a long time, it is like having another relative. Feiyu nodded, that's not bad. She paused for a while, and made up her mind. She looked up at Shang Tannen and asked, you just mentioned the performance activities in the administrative district. Do you still want to go and see it? It happens that I haven't been there either. Shang Tannen paused, looking into Feiyu's eyes, and couldn't say anything. If you want to go, I'll book a restaurant now. We'll go there to eat first, and then we can go shopping. Do you want to eat the authentic dishes of our mammon or something exotic? Feiyu started to plan seriously. Oh, I'm still at home, Shang Tannen smiled humbly and explained. I've been at the research institute and have very little time at home. I want to spend more time with the elderly and help with some things, then, not watching the performance, just eating. Do you have time? Let's find a specialty restaurant in your Zuli district, Feiyu asked hopefully. I haven't eaten yet, And you haven't eaten either. Shang Tanan became more and more confused. Why did Miss Yan come to invite him to dinner from time to time? Where are your family members? He said with a smile. Are they too busy to accompany you out to squeeze in with the crowd? I don't have any family, just me, Feiyu said frankly. Shang Tanan was extremely surprised, and looked at Feiyu again and again. He wanted to ask if she had no family at all, but luckily he stopped himself. This made sense. He accepted the order and went to her house for 2 days, and he only saw her on both days. Shang Tanan thought about the large area of Yan's house, and looked at Feiyu's big eyes that were fixed on him. His mind flashed, could it be that she was lonely and bored spending the new year alone, so she went out to find acquaintances to kill time, and he slightly regretted that he had rejected her too directly just now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Request. Feiyu mentioned her family, and she felt that it was an opportunity to start a conversation. She really didn't have much time left. She put aside the preparatory topic of whether to eat or not, and opened her lips slightly. The air in the small hall brushed against her lips, and she felt a little cool and refreshing, which was not so difficult. Student Shang, I am sorry to be so insolent to visit you this time. I actually have something to talk to you about. What is it? Please tell me. Shang Tanan was surprised, but not particularly surprised at this moment. Although he was still very polite, his tone became sincere from the heart. Before we talk, can you promise to keep the content of our conversation confidential forever? Feiyu asked solemnly. Shang Tanan didn't expect Miss Yan to start with this sentence. It made him more hesitant than her saying that she was coming to give a gift. Don't worry, it doesn't involve anything bad. I just don't want my private conversation to be known to outsiders. Student Yan, I'm not good at gossiping. Shang Tanan smiled. Feiyu nodded silently. After a while, she took a breath and said, my grandfather had 2 sons. Although Shang Tanan was surprised, he listened with a gentle expression and did not interrupt. Feiyu said slowly, one is my uncle and the other is my father. My uncle died in an accident when he was young and he never got married. My mother also died early, and I lived with my grandfather and father when I was a child. Later, they died one after another, and I was left alone. Shang Tanan's face showed sincere sympathy, but he heard Feiyu change the subject. Recently, a person suddenly applied to the city hall, claiming to be my uncle's illegitimate child, and he also has a twin sister. The 2 of them requested family blood relationship identification and then division of property. Shang Tanan glanced at Feiyu, still feeling that he didn't know what to say, and continued to remain silent. My lawyer says that if they're truly my uncle's children, they have the same inheritance status as me, and I'll get a 1/3 share. Shang Tanan could only offer a vague reassurance, maybe not. They're not afraid of bloodline verification, instead, they're actively demanding it. Now the process is reaching the point where I'm forced to respond. Shang Tanan observed Feiyu's tightly pursed lips, thought for a moment, and asked in a gentle, concerned voice, will a 1/3 share affect your life? Feiyu blinked, replaying every possible scenario, graduating from graduate school and finding no job, then falling seriously ill, marrying a delinquent, and raising children to support their education. She shook her head. Since my life isn't affected, and I have a new sibling, that's a good thing. After all, they're not my siblings. I've never even heard of or seen them. Feiyu couldn't help but exclaim. Shang Tanan glanced at Feiyu again and nodded, awkwardly expressing his understanding. Feiyu stared straight at him, then behind him. Outside the window, the sun was bright, but the tall building across the street was too close, a massive mass looming over it, obstructing her vision and making her heart tighten. She returned her gaze to Shang Tanan's expression. His features were clean, his eyes clear, and she felt like he wanted to offer comfort but was at a loss for words. 2 of them, and I'm alone. Feiyu's voice was a little dull. But she quickly raised an eyebrow, her eyes piercing. My father has worked hard to build this house for over 20 years, and I will never let a stranger take it away like this. Shang Tanan really didn't know how to comfort Miss Yan. In this situation, they seemed like they were just acquaintances. I need someone to marry. The living room was completely silent. Shang Tanan and Feiyu stared across the table. After a while, He suppressed his surprise and looked at Feiyu with sympathy. Miss Yan must be extremely depressed, with no one to comfort her. She had come to him today and even confided in him such a secret. What does it have to do with your uncle's children coming to divide the family property, after marriage? As long as my husband adds a statement to his marital responsibilities, willing to be responsible for the management of the woman's family and at the same time bear the debt risk of the woman's family, he can be counted as an heir. In this way, I will have two on my side, equal to their brothers and sisters. Then, are you getting married soon? Shang Tanan understood a little. Could it be that Miss Yan is here to send wedding invitations? If all goes well, yes. Shang Tanan didn't dare to ask if it was worth getting married in such a hurry, so he could only smile and say common sense, congratulations, congratulations. Before getting married, I need a marriage partner. Feiyu's voice was soft and clear. She looked directly at Shang Tanan and emphasized it again. No mistake, one song, one post, one content, 1 in 1/6, one book, one bar, one look. Shang Tanan's face became very strange. You're a nice person. Can you come with me to the city hall to register? Shang Tanan stood up suddenly, staring at Feiyu for a long time without being able to utter a word. Suddenly, he turned his back to look out a window. After a while, he turned his neck back and stared at Feiyu's half-raised face waiting for a reply. His expression was simply indescribable. He frowned and asked in disbelief, Student Yan, do you know what you are saying? I know this request is very abrupt. Before I came here, I had already thought about all the details, including the pros and cons of doing this for both of us. Feiyu said clearly, I promise you that this matter will not bother you now or in the future. All you need to do is go to the city hall with me to register your marriage. I will not let you get too deeply involved in my property division case. As a party involved, you will probably only need to show up once or twice in the name of my husband. Nothing else needs to change, whether here or when you return to the institute after school starts. Everything will be based on the status quo. If you meet the right girl and want to have a relationship, go ahead and do it. There are no obligations or responsibilities between us. Oh, by the way, the management of my family and the risks and the marriage vows are just a formality. I will not ask you to contribute labor and time to my family affairs. Don't worry, my family does not have any external debt disputes, and it will not implicate you. Feiyu spoke more and more fluently. The marriage will not last too long. After my property division case is settled, we will probably continue for another year or two as a pretense, and then we can divorce. To thank you for your help, I will pay you a reward, classmate Yan. Shang Tanan interrupted. Looking at Feiyu's paused expression, he wanted to say something but shook his head inside. I promise that the content of our conversation will not be known to any third party. I'm sorry that I can't help you. I can pay the remuneration in one lump sum now, including, classmate Yan. I have to go next door to see Grandma Li. Shang Tanan glanced around, picked up the golden wooden box on the side, and handed it to Feiyu. We are classmates. You don't need to bring gifts. Take it back. Feiyu stood up, her face slowly getting hot, and she lowered her eyes to take it. Chapter 70 Options. Shang Tanan looked at Feiyu, walked to the door and opened it. I'm sorry, I was rude. Feiyu, holding a heavy wooden box, passed by him and apologized politely. She paused, and with a glimmer of hope, she delayed. This is a gift. It has nothing to do with what we talked about. Do you want to accept it? Sorry, Shang Tanan said softly. Feiyu met his eyes, nodded after a while, straightened her back and walked out. Shang Tanan looked at her back in silence, listening to the sound of her boots echoing in the corridor with a clear frequency without any disorder, until he saw her turn into the elevator with his own eyes, still couldn't believe the purpose of her visit. Why are there so many people walking on the street? Feiyu walked out of the building, depressed and confused. She had a wooden face, hugged the wooden box, and tried to stay to the side, keeping a distance from others. Those cheerful people walked, dancing excitedly and talking eloquently. She thought that she was not unacceptable to such an outcome, and in her contingency plan, it was far from reaching the level that required her to be depressed. But God knew that she did not like the fact that today's visit went according to the planned outcome at all. She was in a bad mood and everything went wrong. After walking for a while, she found that she had gone in the wrong direction. Now, she was standing on the platform of a public hovercraft, surrounded by a crowd of people laughing and joking. From time to time, the words Administrative Center District could be heard in the noisy conversations. They were probably all rushing to watch the celebration performance. Just then, a car came and people hurriedly got on. Someone shouted to his children and touched the corner of her wooden box with his hooked hand. Someone behind her patted her shoulder anxiously. "Hey, young lady, do you want to get on the car?" Feiyu stepped aside without saying a word. "Why are you in such a hurry to line up if you're not getting on the bus?" The burly man rolled his eyes at her. "Can't you just wait until everyone else arrives and line up together? There's a bus behind you, and you have to be so intrusive to cut in line and take up a spot. Where's your manners?" Feiyu glanced sideways at the man, pursing her lips to suppress her anger. The man pursed his lips when he saw she was a pretty girl. The people behind him shouted and urged her, and the man turned around and raised his voice. "Why are you pushing? We're all here to have fun, we're all neighbors, so take it easy." He sidled past Feiyu, deliberately flashing a white smile, and glared at her face. The gaze was intense. Feiyu was so angry that she almost threw the wooden box in his face. Before she could move, the crowd surged past her. The hovercar closed its doors, leaving her on the platform, where she finally felt she could breathe freely. She looked up and saw someone waving at her from the hovercar window, as if it were the man again. She glared at the hovercar as it took off, a suffocating rage she had nowhere to vent. Standing there, she snorted unladylike, her gaze darting around her. She noticed a green patch behind the platform, bordered by a long row of seats, a rare sight. She immediately crossed the patch and headed for the seats. The sunlight, no longer obscured by the tall buildings, streamed down upon her tense face. A scoundrel had inflamed her fighting spirit. After picking a seat and settling down, she cast a sharp glance at the public hovercar station, as if it were an imaginary enemy. Her mood softened slightly. She took a deep breath, then another, brushing the scoundrel's rough face from her mind like dust. She quickly shifted her focus, taking advantage of the quiet moment to sift through her yearbook. "Dad, look, there's no one at the community center today." Of course, everyone went to the administrative district to see the performance. Who said that? There must be people. "Look, isn't there an ant waiting in a seat outside?" Shang Tannen listened to the chatter of the neighborhood children and casually glanced down. Sure enough, the usually bustling center was empty. The outdoor equipment stood still, and no one was seen walking on the ground. No one was sunbathing in the green area outside, and there was only a vague pink figure on the bench in the waiting area. His eyes tightened and he looked down again. The hovercraft rose higher and higher, the pink figure almost turning white in the sunlight, becoming increasingly blurred. Soon the hovercraft reached the designated height of the skyrail and whizzed forward. The only color of the green lawn outside the entire center remained eye-catching, but it was getting smaller and smaller. Shang Tannen sat there, feeling uneasy. After a moment, he made an excuse to move to the back of the car, away from his familiar neighbors, and dialed a video call. On the projection screen, Feiyu stared at him quietly. "Mr. Yan, are you sitting in the activity center?" "I don't know where that is," Shang Tannen worried for her. "Is there a lawn in front of you with chairs around it?" "Yes." Feiyu, on the projection screen, glanced around, as if wondering where Shang Tannen was. "I'm not nearby. I just took the public transport platform across from the lawn." "I didn't see you until it left." Shang Tannen said this, then remembered that he had rejected Feiyu's request to go to see the lights with his neighbor. Seeing her expression, which seemed calm and without any resentment, he felt sorry, thinking he had gone too far. "Why are you sitting there? The parking lot is the other way. Can't you find the way?" "I can find it, but I took the wrong way. I need to rest for a while." This wasn't a short while. Shang Tannen had already eaten lunch before leaving with his neighbor. He calculated that Feiyu had been lingering near his house for quite some time. "I can't get out of the car right now and come back to give you directions," he said anxiously. "Take a look at the map, or ask someone at the hovercar station. Just ask for the nearest public parking lot. They'll know." "I can find it," Feiyu said flatly, glancing at Shang Tannen. "Anything else?" Shang Tannen paused, then asked, "What are you going to do now? Go home?" "I'm asking, what about that thing?" "Continue selecting people." There was a pause between them. Feiyu studied Shang Tannen's face, waited a moment, then spoke. "That's it. I'm going home." The projection screen suddenly faded. Shang Tannen frowned, feeling a mixture of sympathy for Feiyu and absurdity. How could she have come up with such an idea? Feiyu continued to think of the scoundrel's appearance, calmly pondering the feasibility of issuing a missing person mission. There were so many people waiting, So many, there should always be someone who could take on a temporary mission. Mission descriptions, inspection conditions, these were just details. The most crucial flaw of a missing person mission was that it would leave traces. Perhaps she should try. However, before that, she still had options. Hello, Qi Mingda, she smiled at the person on the projection screen. Qi Mingda was the most popular boy in Class A3, he seemed to be able to speak to anyone warmly. Feiyu felt that way. Of course, aside from exchanging project progress in the corridor outside the studio on the same floor of the Class A building, and being notified by him of various class and school affairs, Feiyu didn't have much more to do with him. So, the person on the projection screen returned the polite greeting, their enthusiasm tinged with clear surprise. Hello, Yan Feiyu. How was your vacation? How did you find time to video chat with me? The Alliance's annual holiday is here, and I'm wishing my classmates a happy new year. Feiyu glanced at the large group of men, women, and children gathered behind Qi Mingda, chatted briefly, and without even probing, said goodbye. Who else? Chapter 71, Accepting Defeat. The joyful New Year holiday was over. The students of Donglan Research Institute were more than halfway through their holiday. Shuang Tianan walked out of the elevator, and the dark corridor suddenly lit up. He had just finished taking an order. It was dark outside, but the light in the building was as bright as day. The contrast was too great, not to mention that the corridor was always very quiet in the middle of the night. Such brightness made people feel unnatural. He rubbed his eyes and opened the door of his house quietly. There was no sound in the living room. He glanced at Grandma Li's room and moved even more quietly. He thought that he would not take any more orders after finishing the remaining orders. He should stay at home with Grandma Li more time, otherwise when he returned to the institute in a few days, Grandma Li would be lonely again. Shuang Tianan pushed open the door of his room, put his hands on his clothes, and was about to take off his clothes. He paused and almost gasped. Although he was frozen in place, his eyes were staring at his desk in disbelief. A person was sitting there. He seemed to be dozing with his chin supported by his elbows, his eyes closed. But now he opened his eyes, straightened his back, and there was a red mark on half of his cheek. His pupils were dark black and looked straight at him. It was Yan Feixin. Why are you here? He was so surprised that he forgot to call him classmate Yan. Feixin hurriedly stood up. You are back? Grandma Li asked me to come in. Shuang Tianan subconsciously turned around to look at the door. Grandma Li is asleep. She said she went to bed very early. Feixin lowered her voice and explained, she said you were working outside and came back very late. It was cold sitting in the living room outside. Your room is small and warmer. She asked me to wait in your room. Don't worry, I didn't move anything. What are you doing here? Shuang Tianan frowned and asked in a low voice, feeling like his head was about to explode. Feixin opened her mouth and cast her eyes on the crack of the door behind him. Shuang Tianan turned around and closed the door tightly, then turned around and asked, what did you say to Grandma Li? I said I had holiday homework to ask you. Grandma Li wanted to urge you to go home, but I said no, I'll just wait. Feiyu lowered her eyes and said frankly, I was afraid that if you knew I was here again, you would ask Grandma Li to ask me to leave. Grandma Li is very nice and invited me to have dinner at home. Oh, she asked me to tell you that if you are hungry when you come back, there is food left in the kitchen. Shuang Tianan looked at Feiyu, walked to the bed and sat down for a while, raised his hand and pointed at the desk, not knowing whether it was because he was tired from work or because he was weak in the current scary situation. His voice was weak. Student Yan, please sit down. What do you want me to do? I would like you to reconsider my previous proposal. Student Yan, if it is something else, and I can help you within my ability, I will definitely help. Shuang Tianan sighed and shook his head, but this matter is not a joke. I'm sorry I can't do anything. Feiyu was silent for a moment, then opened her mouth and said, today, I was forced to respond to the lawsuit. The other party has completed the physiological sampling. My grandfather, my uncle, my father and even my genetic and physiological information will be compared with his data without my consent. She had no expression on her face, but her eyes were filled with stubbornness and anger, which made her look sharp. Shuang Tianan looked over silently. Under the light, Miss Yan was sitting alone at a desk a little further away. She was wrapped in a dark green long dress, which was very plain. There were some colorful silk threads outlining the hem of the skirt, which shone faintly in the light, adding a little softness. If the other party is really your uncle's child, your kinship should be considered very close. If you are not willing for them to take too much, perhaps you can tell them your demands frankly, and everyone can discuss an acceptable distribution ratio, Xiong Tanin said sincerely. When he was in the research institute, he had a good relationship with his classmates, but he was always polite and would never rashly comment on other people's family affairs. Now his words were really heartfelt to the point of being presumptuous. Is it worth it for you to pay with your marriage? You don't know who I am, or what the other people you put on the property division list are like. Have you considered the risks? You may lose not only your marriage, but also another family property. Feiyu stared at him silently, and after a while, she said clearly, based on what you just said, I am willing to admit defeat. Without waiting for Xiong Tanin to answer, she continued, in fact, I have prepared some control measures for the risks you mentioned, but they are not necessary for you. Xiong Tanin was speechless, and suddenly laughed and said, Classmate Yan, I believe you have the ability to solve the problem. What I said just now was nonsense because I didn't understand the situation. He stood up. I cannot agree with your proposal. It's very late. How are you going to go back? Feiyu pursed her lips, still sitting, looking up. When I came here today, I knew I would mess things up. I have never been very good at persuading people. She looked at Xiong Tanin and said earnestly, but I told myself that no matter what, I must try again. I have no other choice. I'm sorry for deceiving Grandma Li, and I'm sorry for disturbing you so late at night. But I haven't finished what I want to say to you. Can you let me finish? No matter what the result is, I will be very grateful. Xiong Tanin's eyes were fixed on Feiyu's face. After a while, he turned around and sat down. He noticed that she sighed lightly, and he wanted to sigh too. Don't you have any other way? Yes, he raised his eyebrows and listened attentively. Giving birth to a child right away can also count as one more person, no mistake, one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, take a look. Xiong Tanin was stunned, and this time he sighed without any concealment. Student Yan, do you lack the necessary safety awareness? No, I just want to be as honest with you as possible about my current situation. Xiong Tanin was very depressed. He really felt that Miss Yan's situation was worrying. The way she spoke and acted, if she met someone with ulterior motives, it would be all over. It would be a case of losing both the wife and the army. Student Yan, he advised in a sincere and gentle tone, I really think that your method of finding someone to marry is not good. Putting aside the potential risks, think about it. If you get married, they can also get married. It will increase from 2 to 4. Would you be at a greater disadvantage? They can't, Feiyu said in a deep voice. Now their application for division of property has reached the stage of forcing me to respond. The only claimants are the two brothers and sisters. If they want to add more claimants, they will have to reapply. However, the alliance law stipulates that a person can only request compulsory response once in their lifetime for the same dispute against another person. If they withdraw the current application, add people and apply again, then the result of forcing me to respond now will be considered a failure. Failure is slander and improper claim. The consequence is that they will not only be punished, but they will never have a second chance to force me to respond. Chapter 72 Why me? They rush the process too fast. There's no point getting married now. Feiyu felt a little relieved at this point. What's more, even if they were married from the start, their spouses and my husband's share of the Yan family inheritance would be vastly different. My husband can be considered a descendant of the Yan family. Their spouses are merely subordinates and not considered heirs. Perhaps appropriate humanitarian considerations could be made from the perspective of a heavy family burden. She looked at Xiong Tanin seriously. This distinction involves many legal factors, and it's difficult for me to explain it clearly right now. In fact, my lawyer advised me not to overemphasize my husband's importance in the inheritance, but I believe cooperation should be based on honesty. Xiong Tanin remained silent. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I should have said help. Xiong Tanin raised an eyebrow and looked at her. She sat upright, her demeanor dignified, and spoke as if they were in a project team meeting. Only in the silence could one see the anticipation and hope in her eyes. Why me? You're the best one lately. The two looked at each other, and Xiong Tanin couldn't help but say, aren't there boys in your class A too? And your former classmates and friends, I think they should be more familiar and easier to talk to. I did propose a few candidates during this period, Feiyu said frankly, but some of them seemed to have girlfriends, some went out to play, and some. I video called them to wish them a happy new year. and they seemed very surprised, so there was no way I could bring up this matter. I prefer a face-to-face interview, and you're the right person, and your clothes, classmate Yan. You're talking about a marriage partner. Shang Tianan found it very difficult to understand whether it's true or not. They are legally related to you, and you just go to whoever is close to you. I can't find another person I can visit late at night to talk about this, Feiyu said quietly. I don't have time, classmate Yan. It's my duty to receive classmates when they come to visit. Shang Tianan smiled bitterly and reminded tactfully, meeting Feiyu's eyes that lit up instantly, and said fiercely, you don't have to think too much. Feiyu lowered her eyes, remained silent for a moment, then raised her eyebrows and said, Mr. Shang, I was just answering your questions. I still have some more to say, and I hope you'll listen. Shang Tianan looked at her and nodded. When I came here this afternoon, I chatted with Grandma Li. She said she's not feeling well and it's a great burden on you. Grandma Li told you this? Shang Tianan frowned slightly. She asked me how we were doing in the research institute and what we usually did, and these are the things we talked about. She told me that when you were studying at your community middle school, you started helping other contractors before you even reached the age allowed by the freelancers union to take orders, and you were once cheated out of your wages. Not only do you have to bear the expenses of the family and her medical expenses now, you also have to save money to move to a livable place with green mountains and clear waters. Classmate Yan, this is my family affair, Shang Tianan said helplessly. Grandma Li lives alone most of the time, and she likes to talk a lot when she meets people, Feiyu said sincerely. Classmate Shang, I really need to find someone to help me through this difficult time. To express my gratitude, I can buy a house in Sisan district and give it to you, or you can take Grandma Li to live there. Don't you care about Grandma Li very much? I can also find a good family doctor for Grandma Li. In addition, I will register a free design shop for you similar to the appliance shop. Not only can you take big orders, but you can also ask others to help you do things, and you can decide their wages. Shang Tianan was surprised and amused, shaking his head. Student Yan, thank you for your kindness. A thought crossed his mind, and he suddenly wondered, how do you know about the equipment room? Grandma Li doesn't know about it. He had absolutely never told Grandma Li about his part-time job at the research institute, and he didn't recall ever mentioning the equipment room when he was with Feiyu at the institute. In fact, most of his classmates in Department GUI only knew that he worked part-time at the Student Activity Center, managing robots. Few knew that he also worked part-time in the equipment room off campus, let alone people from other departments. When Feiyu first arrived, she had the strategy of impressing people with her honesty and sincerity. Now, when Shang Tianan asked her this question between conversations, she blinked and said apologetically, I know. I need to know if you currently have any friends of the opposite sex, so you can help me with this. Shang Tianan looked at her. How did you find out? I asked a lawyer. What else did you find out? Nothing. You have a clean record and live a simple life. I just wanted to find out if you have any friends of the opposite sex. Since you've already checked, why are you still chatting with Grandma Li? Shang Tianan felt extremely uncomfortable, even a little annoyed. He thought of himself being secretly investigated by Feiyu, and Grandma Li being tricked by Feiyu, and his face turned red. He barely suppressed the anger rising in his chest and stood up. Feiyu craned her neck in surprise, trying to discern the expression on his face. In her impression, Shang Tianan had a lukewarm temper. She had a bad temper and would just put on a stern face when she met someone she didn't like. However, Shang Tianan seemed to be able to maintain a modest and gentlemanly demeanor towards everyone. It was completely unexpected that he turned cold when she was talking to him nicely. Feiyu's ladylike upbringing forced her to stand up with her host. She still tried to save the situation. It's just a chat. When I was waiting for you, Grandma Li told me something about you, Student Yan. It's very late. I think you should go back. Feiyu got anxious and blurted out the last important condition. The reward I just proposed can be redeemed at dawn. Student Yan, you don't need to say any more. Feiyu stared at Shang Tianan and saw him standing in the middle of the room. Although he didn't drive him away harshly, the meaning of expelling him was very firm. She couldn't describe her mood at the moment. Perhaps the situation was hopeless and there was nothing she could do. She had not thought Shang Tianan would agree, but after really trying her best, she found that the result did not bring her the light as she secretly hoped. The loss was still so huge, drowning her like an ocean. Mr. Shang, she said slowly after a long while, I am very grateful to you. You don't have to thank me. I didn't do anything, Shang Tian walked to the door, but I promise that I will never mention your words today or last time to anyone at any time. You have my promise. I appreciate you listening to me, Feiyu said with difficulty, still remembering to bow slightly. Sorry to bother you, I'll take you out. Is your car in the underground parking lot? Yes, she responded casually and walked out the door. Shang Tian was well-mannered after all. Seeing Yi like this, he silently saw her off. The two walked side by side in the corridor. No one spoke, only two footsteps could be heard, combined together, echoing in almost unison in the corridor, passing through doors. Feixiu's high boots were crisp, while Shang Tian's work boots were low. As Feixiu stepped on the elevator, her expression gradually straightened out. Please stay, she stepped into the elevator, her voice regained strength, and she spoke very politely. I'll take you to the car. Shang Tian was about to follow in. No need, please stay. Feixiu stood tall and straight at the door, her chin slightly raised 5 degrees, and the corners of her mouth curved into a polite little tip, politely declining. Shang Tian glanced at Feixiu, and saw that the elevator door was about to close, and asked hurriedly, what level of security is your car? Level 1, Feixiu's indifferent answer came from the crack of the door. Shang Tian watched through the elevator door as Feiyu took a step back and stood in the center of the elevator, her expression calm, waiting quietly inside. Before he could even blink, she vanished with the elevator. Then, his eyes blurred, and the image of a lush green forest appeared on the cylindrical wall of the elevator. He paused for a moment, having seen this immersive scene so many times that it had become dull. After a moment, he turned back, thinking that Miss Yan's car was integrated into the Global Security Patrol's surveillance system, and any mishaps would be escorted by patrol cars, so he didn't need to worry about her safety on the return trip. The streets beneath the dense jungle of skyscrapers were bathed in the bleak light of streetlights. The wind blew sideways from the alleys, distorting its direction in the center of the street and causing Feiyu's long skirt to flutter and billow. Her mind was in a turmoil, and anxiety, like this whirling draft, rushed here and there, unable to find her way out. The day after tomorrow, when the result of Yan Qingjian's family bloodline identification comes out, she won't be able to keep her home. Everything will be divided up, even the old house where she was born and raised, will no longer belong to her alone. Feiyu couldn't tell how long she had been walking, and at a certain moment, she automatically felt that it was almost time to reach the public parking lot, so she looked up and looked around blankly. This place seemed familiar, and it took her a long time to realize that she had made the same mistake as last time. After leaving Shang Tian's building, she turned the wrong way and ended up at the public suspended station platform again. There was no one else on the platform except her late at night. Feiyu stood there for a long time in despair, dragging her feet across the lawn at the back, and found the seat she had sat last time. Shang Tian followed her from a distance with a complicated expression. The night was so long that he no longer expected to sleep. Chapter 73 Late Night in the Snow Chestnut District. The area was very dark, including the center of the lawn where Shang Tian was standing, and also the bench in the waiting area outside the community activity center where Feiyu was sitting. Everything was pitch black. Not far behind Shang Tian, the indicator light of the public suspended platform automatically switched to the most energy-saving mode when there were no cars or people, and only a fat blue bell icon was reflected in the sky. He looked forward and saw the big turntable standing in the open air of the social activity center, which was a dark outline. However, even in such darkness, he could still make out that the person on the bench had her entire upper body bent over her knees, and she never straightened up. She buried her head and cried. Shang Tian watched for a long time before he realized this. At first, he didn't understand why she was crossing the dark lawn. He just thought she was sorting her boots and socks in the dark. He hesitated and was not convenient to go forward. Later, he suddenly understood. Shang Tian was torn between his conscience and his desires. No one likes to be caught crying, but it seemed impossible to ignore her so late at night. But how could she do anything about it? A beam of light shone out from the bushes in the community activity center. Who is there? Feiyu was startled, raised her body, and turned her head to look at the footsteps. But seeing the white light swaying on her face, she squinted her eyes, but couldn't see anything about the other person. What are you doing sitting there? A rough male voice approached her. She subconsciously clenched her fists. What are you doing here in the middle of the night? The white light moved to her side and swirled around her handbag twice. During this gap, she saw a rather burly figure standing 2 steps away. "Do you live nearby? Why don't you speak?" The figure took a step closer to her, and the white light shone on her face again. "Hey, say something, Yan." A quick shout came over, and the person in front of Feiyu was stunned, and the white light moved over immediately. Feiyu took the opportunity to reach out and quickly snatched up her handbag, her eyes also fixed on the lawn in front of her. The light only illuminated the dark clothes of the running person. Before Feiyu could see more clearly, the person had already strode up to her. "Yan." Feiyu's arm was grabbed, and she heard the person shout again, blaming, "Stop arguing, let's go home." Feiyu looked up, her heart at ease. Shuang Tian'an raised his palm to block the white light shooting towards his face. His eyes quickly swept across Feiyu's face, and without saying anything, he pulled her up with force. "Hey, what's your relationship? What do you do?" asked the burly man. "Nothing, we had a quarrel." Shuang Tian'an's voice sounded a little irritable. The white light moved to Feiyu's face and swayed back and forth. He pulled Feiyu away from the light and raised his elbow to block it for her. "What's the point of you chasing me?" Feiyu asked coldly. "Stop arguing, Grandma's going to scold me again," Shuang Tian'an said humbly. The man's light swung back and forth between Shuang Tian'an and Feiyu, and he hummed in his nose. "Wow, it's the middle of the night, and you're in such a good mood." Shuang Tian'an laughed. The man left, and the white light swayed forward on the lawn. Feiyu and Shuang Tian'an both stood in the darkness and looked at each other. Shuang Tian'an let go of her, turned his head, and stared at the light as it passed through the center of the lawn, then turned back. "Student Yan, are you okay?" "No." "Why are you here?" Shuang Tian'an felt very powerless after hearing Feiyu's crisp answer. "What are you doing here?" "Sit down," Feiyu replied, and what made Shuang Tian'an even more speechless was that she turned around and really sat down again. "This place is not good. Didn't you feel it was dangerous just now? You still want to sit here?" Shuang Tian'an didn't want to scold Feiyu. He was anxious and suggested kindly, "Let's go. Don't stay here for long. I'll take you home. You're in a bad mood and you need to go home and rest." "I can't leave. I have to wait," Feiyu said with her head raised. "Thank you for just now, but the patrol will be here soon. You'd better hide first to avoid the trouble of explaining." "Patrol? I called the police." Shuang Tian'an stared at Feiyu. In the night, her facial features were not very clear. She only saw her eyes shining slightly. After a long while, he walked over to Feiyu and sat down. He nodded and said, "Okay, call the police." After a moment, he couldn't help but warn, "Don't put yourself in danger. It's more useful than calling the police when something happens." Feiyu didn't comment. She turned her head and stared with wide eyes, trying to make out Shuang Tian'an's expression through the darkness. "Why are you here?" She couldn't help but hope that Shuang Tian'an had changed his mind. "It's getting late, so I'd better give you a walk." "I noticed you didn't go to the underground parking garage," Shuang Tian'an asked in confusion. "Did you take the public lift instead of driving?" "I parked my car in the public parking lot, and there's no space downstairs." "Then why are you walking in this direction?" "The public parking lot is not on this direction." "Didn't you know that the last time you came?" Feiyu was silent for a moment, then said, "I can't tell left from right. When I left the building, I turned left instead of right." Shuang Tian'an was stunned for a long time with his mouth open, and he never thought that Miss Yan had such a flaw in spatial orientation. This night really tormented him. When he found out that Feiyu didn't go to the underground garage to get the car, but got off the elevator on the ground floor, he became furious, and was extremely afraid that the strong-willed girl would do something weird again. Later, he saw her heading for the public hovercraft without hesitation. Although he felt it unlikely Miss Yan would take the hovercraft, there were always exceptions. Just because she had proposed marriage to him, a person she barely knew, in exchange for a larger share of the family fortune, he believed she wouldn't be surprised to do something unexpected. Shuang Tian'an suspected Feiyu was arrogant and had found an excuse to refuse his offer after being rejected. He'd followed her all the way, wanting to approach her but hesitating several times, fearing she'd repeat a ridiculous suggestion, and unable to bear seeing her walking alone on the long street in the middle of the night. Who would have guessed she'd gone the wrong way? Shuang Tian'an recalled her standing on the platform, turning in circles, frozen for a long moment, then slowly walking out into the dark lawn, crying alone. He couldn't tell if she was crying because she was lost or because he hadn't agreed. Of course, he didn't dare ask. But his heart was still pounding for her. The cold sweat that hadn't broken when the big man was there seemed to be breaking out now. He sat in his chair, not knowing what to say. Silence would be even worse, so he resorted to casual conversation. There are very few spaces open to the public in our building's basement parking garage. Outsiders often can't park. There's a car rental company that takes up most of the spaces, and when residents need a car, they rent from them. Yeah, Shang Tanin sighed inwardly. He should have taken Miss Yan home. She was tired after work, and her car had already been returned and needed to be rented again. Plus, he didn't want to be too attentive, fearing she might not give up. And having heard her car had good security features, he thought for a moment and decided not to even mention giving her a ride. If he hadn't gotten downstairs a moment late and hadn't caught up with her, and she'd gotten lost here tonight and encountered a burly man, and gotten into trouble, he'd probably never be able to pay her back for the rest of her life. The more Shuang Tanin thought about it, the more terrified he became, deeply regretting his own negligence and inconsiderateness. You're not leaving. You can't leave, Feiyu said softly, gazing at the patrol airship flashing by. Chapter 74, Chasing. I forgot to renew my connection with the patrol, so there's no real-time video transmission. Now that person's gone, and you're here, what are you going to say? Feiyu asked. Did that person do anything untoward just now? Shang Tanin tilted his head, gazing intently at Feiyu. I can't say, forget it, don't get too involved, Shang Tanin said, considering the reasons behind Feiyu sitting alone. Just say we had an argument, okay? The two had just agreed when the patrol airship landed in front of them. The lights illuminated the entire row of benches, making Feiyu and Shang Tanin squint. Two fully armed patrolmen nimbly jumped down, one facing Feiyu, while the other, without a word, waved his hand and had Shang Tanin stand a safe distance away from Feiyu. He then read the identities of both of them. Ms. Yan Feiyu, yes, please state your reason for calling the police. Feiyu had just glanced at Shang Tanin when the patrolman warned Shang Tanin fiercely, before we question you, you are not allowed to speak or make any subtle movements. Understand? Understood, officer, Shang Tanin cooperated. The patrolman snorted and asked Feiyu with a relaxed expression, Ms. Yan, how did you get hurt? I had a fight with him, and now we've made up. The patrolman was stunned and frowned. What is your relationship, classmate? Feiyu said with lowered eyes. Friend. The patrolman glanced at Feiyu. She was dressed very well, but her long hair was a little messy, and her eyes and nose were slightly red and swollen. Obviously she had been crying. The patrolman cast another sharp glance at Shang Tanin on the other side and asked, did he behave violently toward you? No. Then what were you arguing about? How did it start? Why did you call the police? During the New Year holiday, I asked him to accompany me to a celebratory performance, but he refused. Today, I got angrier and angrier, so I came over to argue with him. The patrolman's expression turned strange. After glancing at the two of them in silence and suspicion, he said seriously, so you called the police? Ms. Yan, did your friends verbally threaten you? You're not a resident of this area, and you stayed here late at night. Did he intend to detain you? No, he told me to go back. The patrolman glanced at the two of them again, probably about to roll his eyes. Ms. Yan, are you sure you're not in any danger from outside? No, Ms. Yan, not every private argument warrants calling the police, the patrolman said with a scowl, his tone extremely dissatisfied. I'm sorry, officer, she doesn't quite understand, Shang Tanin quickly interjected. The patrolman glanced at him, his eyes seemingly filled with sympathy. Okay, let's go home. They turned and took a few steps, chuckling among their companions. Chasing someone, Shang Tanin and Feiyu remained silent. Once the patrol boat took off and the two were once again enveloped in darkness, Feiyu broke the silence. I'm sorry to have troubled you. Not really, Shang Tanin shook his head. There are a lot of people living here, and at night, most women and children try not to go out. I'm glad you're okay. Let's go back. First, come downstairs to my building. I'll rent a car, then I'll take you to the public parking lot to pick it up and take you home. No need, student Yan, don't take safety lightly, Shang Tanin advised earnestly. Feiyu remained silent. To Shang Tanin's relief, she now took a step of her own accord, no longer considering lingering in the night. He hurried to catch up, walking side by side with her back. Their shoes and boots scraped against the short blades of grass, making a rustling sound in the silent night. Thank you for just now, she suddenly whispered. Shuang Tanan couldn't help but tilt his head to look at her. After a moment, he picked up a small topic to ask, adding a touch of friendliness to the sullen figure. You said earlier that you forgot to renew your connection with the patrol team. What happened? I don't spend much time at home. Whenever I go to Donglan, I cancel my personal connection with the momming patrol team and only keep the connection with my home security. This time, when I was home for vacation, I had a lot to deal with, and I forgot to restore my personal connection. Shuang Tanan could tell that Miss Yan was more frugal and pragmatic than he had imagined. Have you always managed the household yourself? Yes. Feiyu stared into the darkness ahead. My father told me to take good care of it. Shuang Tanan glanced at Feiyu again, turned back, walked silently for a while, and asked, so what are you going to do this time? I don't know yet. Feiyu listened to the rustling of footsteps. Faint light and shadow gradually appeared on the lawn before them. They were approaching the public suspended platform. Mr. Shuang, she said, her face tilted upward, gazing at Shuang Tanan's hazy features. My lawyer says I can't make any major asset purchases right now. Once the division of assets begins, all my major transactions will need to be re-audited, and any actions unrelated to the family's revenue-generating business will be deemed invalid. Therefore, the Zhisan district property and workshop I promised you can't use family funds, but only my mother's personal assets. That's all I have available right now. I implore you to give my proposal a final reconsideration. I can offer you an additional reward later. Through the dim light, Shuang Tanan gazed down at Feiyu's equally blurry face, speechless for a long time. I swear to you with my life and my reputation that I will never interfere with your personal life. Aside from cooperating with me to leave a record in our marriage history, you will never bear any responsibilities or obligations for this marriage. We can sign a divorce agreement in advance on the day we register our marriage. Is it worth it? It's worth it, Feiyu said without hesitation. Money can be earned, but marriage is different. If you feel that it will be divided unfairly, you have a lawyer and you can petition the arbitration agency. Your father's contribution to the family should be taken into consideration, and you should be treated preferentially, only a little bit. Feiyu shook her head. They will say that I have been enjoying the ancestral property since I was a child and have been treated preferentially for more than 20 years. Do we have to fight like this? That's my home. I can consider that they are my uncle's flesh and blood, even if their mother has never been recognized by the Yan family, and their birth has never been allowed by my uncle. I agree to provide them with sufficient living expenses, but I will never allow them to demolish my home. Feiyu's eyes were firm, and she spoke word by word. My grandfather was born there and died there. My father was born there and died there. I was born there and may die there. Is there no other way? Shuang Tanan saw that Feiyu was silent for a long time, her voice as bleak as the cool breeze blowing on her cheeks. No. I also wish there were other ways. I also think that the man just now walking towards me, while I was terrified and evaluating whether he was a good candidate, was a crazy thing to do. You? Shuang Tanan stared at Feiyu. I don't have any other way, she said in a weak and thin voice. There are so many of them. Chapter 75. Okay. Shuang Tanan couldn't believe that he had invited Miss Yan back to his home. Now, she was sitting in his room, on the edge of his bed. His second bedroom was very small, even smaller than the dormitory of the research institute. Because he was not at home all year round, the furnishings were as simple as they could be. But her eyes wandered subtly on the walls, as if she had never looked at him before, when she had stayed alone in his room for a long time before he came back. The corners of her mouth were even more upturned, with restrained curiosity. Her whole face not only did not have the sleepiness that should be there at midnight, but also glowed under the light, and there was no trace of the bitterness on that dark lawn. For a moment, he suspected that he had been tricked. Miss Yan. Shuang Tanan pondered silently. If you want to use a self-torture trick, you must have the wisdom and courage to do so. Aren't you afraid? He sat at the desk, feeling very powerless. Feiyu turned her gaze back to his face and actually laughed. My father said that I have high standards, but they are basically accurate. Shuang Tanan turned his head away. Although he should be grateful for a girl praising him so frankly in front of him, the current situation made him laugh and cry. Also, you have to be able to reason. Feiyu stared at Shuang Tanan, who was even more fidgeting than her, and said clearly, even if you misjudge a bad guy, there is no need for that bad guy to show his vulgarity a few hours before the wedding. So, there is no need for me to be afraid now. Thank you for taking me in tonight. Shuang Tanan was already tired, and now he simply supported his forehead and pulled his eyebrows hard. Student Yan, there are many people in this world, some of whom you may never imagine, and you can't see through them with your eyes or reasoning. Feiyu felt relieved and didn't take Shuang Tian'an's words as an offense, smiling slightly. Shuang Tian'an felt a growing headache, and said sincerely, don't do this next time. You have a comfortable life, and the environment you are exposed to is relatively simple, so you may be more simplistic in your judgment of people. You should be more cautious in the future. Feiyu still smiled, and did not express any opinion. It was obvious that she was in such a good mood that she would humbly accept whatever others said. Shuang Tian'an looked at her, and was worried about how he should clean up this mess. Why did he agree to her ridiculous request at that time? Why did he say the 3 words okay then? If he told her now that he might have just been affected by the situation on the lawn and comforted her casually, and it was not his original intention, could he change it? However, he did not have the opportunity to organize the appropriate words in his mind, because Feiyu quickly broke the brief silence in the room. You'd better not call me classmate Yan, just call me by my name, she reminded, demonstrating directly. Feizi. After a pause, she continued, when necessary, you can call me Zai Zai. I will also call you by your name, Tian'an, or you have a more intimate nickname, Xiaoan, right? No, Shuang Tian'an blurted out. Then Tian'an. Feizi curved her lips and practiced it first. Tian'an. Shuang Tian'an glanced at her and nodded after a long while. Of course, back to Donglan, whatever you want to call me, we don't meet each other often anyway. I'm very busy next school year. And you should be busy with your graduation project as well. Shuang Tian'an nodded speechlessly. Tomorrow, Feizi continued, let's go to the city hall to register early in the morning, and then pick up Grandma Li to my house, and we'll have a meal together. Don't tell Grandma Li about this, Shuang Tian'an said hurriedly. In front of Grandma Li, we are still ordinary classmates, she can't accept this kind of thing. I won't tell. Having a meal doesn't mean anything. I disturbed your house today, and it's normal for me to treat you back tomorrow. I still have some last orders to do tomorrow, and I have to leave after going to the city hall. It won't be over until very late, so let's have a meal. Shuang Tian'an is undoubtedly a kind person who helps Feizi now. Feizi feels that she should express her goodwill, so she said, what about the day after tomorrow? Let's not do it. I will ask for a short leave from my employer tomorrow and accompany you to complete the registration. You and your lawyer will handle the subsequent matters. When you need me to show up, let me know in advance. After you finish this matter, we will go to the city hall to change our marital status. Shuang Tian'an sorted out his thoughts and breathed a sigh of relief. Everything else should remain as it is. It's better not to deliberately make a fuss. This was Feiyu's expected model of formal marriage, and she readily agreed. Okay. Looking at Shuang Tian'an again, she asked, then I will let my lawyer go to look at houses and choose the address for the workshop tomorrow. What are your specific requirements? I don't need it. Shuang Tian'an shook his head. I don't need any compensation. You don't want compensation? Feiyu was surprised. Shuang Tian'an saw Feiyu's expression become puzzled and inquiring, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Just think of it as me doing a favor for my classmate. But don't you want to move to a better place to live? Who doesn't want to move to a better place to live? Shuang Tian'an said seriously, but I don't make a fortune by doing this kind of favor for others. Besides, after I go to the research institute, I let Grandma Li move out of this accustomed community alone. She is unwilling, and I won't feel at ease. Changing places for no reason will scare the old lady. Classmate Yan, you don't have to think about these things. Feiyu looked at him carefully and said thoughtfully, I understand what you mean. It just so happens that any move I make in real estate now will attract some unnecessary attention. So, after you graduate, if you are interested in opening your own workshop, we will plan it. You don't want a house in Hisan district, you can want anything else. We will postpone it to fulfillment after the matter is completed. You will have plenty of time to choose. As for Grandma Li's medical health problems, this is a small matter. I can take care of it in the next few days. We will hire a planet-level service-level general practitioner, and let his assistant pay a home follow-up every week. This way, you will feel more at ease when you go to Donglan. Do you think this arrangement is appropriate? No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum. Shuang Tian'an shook his head helplessly. I said I don't want your compensation, and that means I don't want your compensation. Not even the house or the workshop, and Grandma Li's doctor. He sighed. Student Yan, you may not know this. But our community has 3 designated community doctors. They're the only ones who can access other medical resources. The planetary service level general practitioner you mentioned won't be serving as a nursing home for a single household in our community. Even if there were exceptions, it would be very strange if others knew about it. Grandma Lee is just suffering from the usual age-related physical decline, and she doesn't need such high-quality medical care for the time being. You don't need to worry about it. Feiyu's eyes widened at the thought of such a large community sharing 3 community doctors. Shuang Tanin smiled at her. Having come to this, he stood up and went to the closet to search for a blanket. But you have to get some compensation. You've helped me so much, and I can't not pay you. He turned around. Miss Yan's eyes were fixed on him, her brows furrowed, and she was clearly embarrassed. Student Yan, he said casually, turning his back and pulling out 2 blankets. I don't want any reward from you. If you really want to give, I'll ask you for help in the future. Please lend a hand if you think it's necessary. I'll definitely help you, Feiyu promised immediately. Her brows were still furrowed, and she was actually muttering something in her heart. She would rather give him a house and a workspace, so that the reward would be more direct. Shuang Tanin turned around, blanket in hand, his eyes flickering over Fei's face. He seemed to understand her feelings and smiled, saying, I was just saying that. Even if I ask for your help, it would only be once. It's best if it's not something difficult to ask for help. He glanced at Miss Yan, who was sitting upright beside the bed, looking a little embarrassed. He stopped talking, lowered his head, examined her carefully, and handed her a brightly colored blanket. Here, this is clean. Wrap yourself in it and sleep for a few hours. I'll go to the living room. When I see Grandma Lee tomorrow morning, tell her I came home too late to take you home. Don't say anything else. We'll be leaving early. Oh, breakfast will be a regular nutritional supplement. Okay, sure, Feiyan said crisply, her eyes following Shuang Tanin. When she saw him reach the door, she remembered something and called out, Mr. Shuang, you can think about the divorce agreement. I'll have my lawyer draft a template. Feel free to state the terms of the divorce. Shuang Tanin glanced at her, then opened the door and left, holding the blanket. Feiyan breathed a long sigh of relief. She tilted her head, smiled as she wrote down the situation and passed it to the lawyer, then shook out a blanket, looked around the room, wrapped herself from head to toe, and fell asleep on the bed with all her heart. The bed was very hard and narrow. Feiyu had never used other people's bed since she was a child. At first, she subconsciously held her breath, rolled her eyes, and scanned the wall and ceiling next to the bed. After a while, she slowly let go of her breath. Now she was very happy. Seeing that Shuang Tanin was a good person, she could also feel good about his bed. After suppressing her instinctive pickiness and adapting for a moment, she made a note of an arrangement in her mind. In the future, she could ask a master to build a comfortable big bed for the house she gave to Shuang Tanin. It happened that there was a piece of calming wood in her father's pile of wood. Feiyu thought about this trivial matter for a while, then clasped her hands together on her chest and gently closed her eyelids. She wanted to have a good sleep. Her battle had been reversed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.